Welcome to Texas as we go racing once more in virtual BMW Motorsport. Last time from Imola, the Coanda and the red line stranglehold was broken on BMW Sim Live. We head to the Lone Star State to do things Texas style here at the Circuit of the Americas. My name is Arjuna Kankipati. Alongside in the RaceSpotTV commentary booth is Lewis McLeod, with our producer Hugo Luis down in the production truck. Lewis, this is a fantastic facility, not necessarily the most popular on the iRacing service, but nevertheless, so many different challenges, elevation changes, technical corners, long sweeping corners. This is going to be a challenge for the BMW M4 GT3.
Yeah, it's one of those circuits which has been around for not too long, nearly a decade now. Opened and first race back in 2012, and it's one of those circuits which maybe doesn't get the love that sometimes it deserves. Some tricky sections on it, but I feel the fast flows of that opening sector. You've got some overtaking opportunities. You've got those bits where you've got to fully commit. It is a circuit which in itself has been built and raised up in the motorsports world, and hopefully it continues in that vein. I quite like it myself.
I really like it, I'll be honest. 20 corners, about 140 feet or so of elevation change, and really it's a fun challenge. And I think part of the issue is people with single screens, especially here on the iRacing service, hard to spot your apexes, and therefore sometimes just hard to drive as well. But here we go, Lewis, once more in virtual BMW Motorsports. It was COTA last time around that punched their ticket to BMW Sim Live. What a race we had. It was challenging with the BS Plus competition cars. Ultimately, though, it was Valkyrie Esports that really surprised us. They were very close to trying to get those tickets. Be interesting to see if they can rebound here today. Yeah, just a couple of seconds off, realistically, from COTA. We're kind of, expecting COTA to come strong. With it being the M4, it's a fairly new car to the service. There's a lot of teams and drivers that are fairly inexperienced with using that car. COTA, Valkyrie, they are not in that category. So the expectation for them was to do well, and they rose to the front, and COTA taking a win. Kind of expected, especially considering we didn't have the Coanders there. It was Redline that were applying the pressure, but they didn't really do as well as we were expecting. We will have two Redline cars back in action today. One of them, though, has Max Panecka and Enzo Benito, who already have tickets punched to BMW Sim Live, so they're only contending for our cash prizes, $4,200 for each of these regular season races. So season 2 now of the BMW Sim GT will have 4 regular season races and then a season finale. That will return to Germany at the Hockenheim Ring. It's an invitational round only, where the top 2 teams will punch tickets to BMW Sim Live rather than just one. Here you can see, now we head to the Lone Star State. Next time, at the end of August, we'll go racing at the mountain. I cannot wait for that. Then it's a bit of a long wait until we go to Monza, almost 2 full months, but $1,200 for each of the drivers in the winning team, $600 for second place, and then $300 for third on the final step of the podium. So plenty to play for. And I mean, we talked about the race at Imola. Lap traffic was a big factor, if you ask me, because I really do think, if not for that lap traffic, the big red machine of BS Plus competition might have honestly won that one. Instead, it was Kova, only about 2 seconds separating them and Valkyrie Esports. Williams, with a different tire strategy, they came home in third. All of these teams, though, I think will be raring to go here today.
Yeah, we're seeing, kind of expecting the BS competition. Maybe we're at a point where we're expecting a couple of them to be inside the top 5. The reason we speak of the top 5 here is because the winner gets the ticket to Munich, but the top 5 get that invite, or rather 2nd through 4th, get that invite into that final round of the season, the Hockenheim Ring, which is quite important in itself. It was important back in season 1 when we were running the M8, so I'm sure it'll be just as, if not even more important, because that will be the very last opportunity to get that invite. And so you either, look, you're either targeting the top 5 or you're targeting a win. And I know that sounds very silly but and very obvious, but it is pertinent to how they're driving around at the moment. They've got to keep focused and eyes forward.
And so qualifying is underway right now. You get 8 minutes track to yourself to set your fastest qualifying lap times. Only 2 lap attempts, and at a track like this where off tracks are often the name of the game, just staying out of the danger zone, as it were, sometimes can be crucial. Here you can see the pink Arnage competition car. Me and Lewis have been watching it in the VRS SCO Masters. You can see those VRS logos on the car as well. They had a bit of a difficult day yesterday from the Temple of Speed when we went racing at Monza. They were punted around at the second Lesmo. Race number 2 went a little bit better for them, but they'll be hoping for some better luck. Only about, if I'm recalling correctly, 30-something cars in today's field. It's a bit bigger than what we saw last time around, Lewis. But at a track like this, so much longer than Imola. Oh, what a wonderful livery there we have on the Wasp cooking machine, painted by Craig Williams himself. But at a track like this, lap traffic isn't necessarily going to be as big of a factor as we were thinking a couple of weeks ago.
I think it will be a bit of a problem. We've got 32 cars. I mean, it's not going to be as big of an issue as it was at Imola. You can actually get round lap traffic around here, but particularly down into the double hairpin section or around this final part of the racetrack, if you're stuck behind lap traffic, it is going to be a problem. By the way, just topping qualifying at present, and a team that maybe we should be focused on. We've got the MSI Esports blue colours currently on screen now. Alejandro Sanchez and I believe Salva Talent will be teaming up in this one, and we know that that is a strong outfit. We've seen that quite a few times this season already.
Yeah, and I mean, in general, the Spanish outfit has been one that really we've been watching over the course of 2021. Of course, some of their competitors in the World Championship ranks having breakout seasons last year and carrying that momentum through. This is that turn number 19 where when IndyCar came here, they were running all the way wide. No concern for track limits. You cannot do that here on the iRacing service. Here comes Sanchez across the line. Does he improve? It was a 2:03.912, and I don't think he's actually gone for a flyer. So I think that will be his qualifying done and dusted. Potentially getting that off track that I was mentioning. So it's MSI in first, Williams in second. Then you find it's no longer 10K Beneke, it's 11K Beneke now. Just doesn't have the same ring in third. It's just not as good. The Wasp Cooking Racing Adventures machine, I think we're going to enjoy watching them. Sindre Setsource at the wheel there. He'll be sharing with Jack Cedric. BS Plus competition and big red machine for Phil Denez sits in 5th. But let's go ahead. Let's go trackside here in Texas. Let's take a look at our starting grid for round 2 in season 2 for the BMW Sim GT Cup. So it will be Alejandro Sanchez and MSI leading us to the green. A 2:03.912, but Sammy Matty Trogan for Williams Esports. He knows what it takes to wheel a GT3 car in the real world. He's only half a tenth off the pole position. Maximilian Benecke lines up inside of Sindre Setsource. Lots of World Championship experience on row number 2 with Phil Dinez and Patrick Holtzman, the second of the red line cars, 5th and 6th. Romain Grosjean's esports team, the juniors, out in force today. They'll line up in 7th alongside Vendaval Sim Racing, making the switch from the Audi yesterday to the BMW today. Arnage competition, PRT Ronin Simsport, they're sharing the edge of the top 10 with the second Ronin Simsport car, and GSR, that's German Sim Racing by ACV, 11th and 12th. Vendaval Sim Racing, Kobe Williams will line up in 13th alongside the Dream Factory, hoping for some dreams from 14th position with Volante Racing and German Sim Racing on a row number 8. Alpha Esports Z Challenger Hong Kong, 17th and 18th position. 3 seconds separating those cars from your leaders, with Iconic Motorsport, CMSRacing.com on the edge of the top 20. Catalyst Racing, BLH Racing, 21st and 22nd. James Keith Racing Blue and Racing Niederhain, 23rd and 24th. You can see there's a big drop-off in lap time. There you find Chris Russo, the final car to set a qualifying lap time. And then you get to the big shock of qualifying. Our 2021 ISO WC champion Valtteri Alander lines up in 26th position. No qualifying lap time set for the 707. Of course, Kova already punched tickets to Sim Live last time around. Dream Factory, Z Challenger Chronicle, Team BSG Racing, and Team Anthony Rivera through 30th position. With just a couple more cars to take a look at, there is the CGB Esports and TB Autos Racing team. 32 cars, and I'll be honest, Lewis, a little bit concerned by the split of lap times that we're kind of seeing here.
There was a big drop-off pole time there, being a 2:03.9. Of course, some of those down the back end doing 2:13s and even up. Obviously, a large gap down to a 2:21. Obviously, may have just not got a decent lap time in qualifying. I mean, I will say I've looked at the amount of lap attempts from Valtteri Alander. They didn't even bother. I think that it's the intent to start at the back and have a bit of fun here.
Well, again, he's sharing that car with Tumas Tatila, so yeah, just having some fun here. There's no way they can punch tickets to Munich. If they can get some prize money, that would be, I think, a pretty good reward. It would be interesting now, I think, for us, Lewis, having commentated on Alander over the course of this summer and his exploits in open wheel racing. He's also been competing in some national championships in Finland in the Indy Pro 2000. How he gets on with the GT3 car, I'm pretty sure he's going to have no problems whatsoever.
Indeed. Now, I've got to, you normally ask me, and I don't know if we want to, but who are we cursing today?
Well, yeah, based on yesterday and how things went, I think we should probably...
I feel bad, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit, but I tell you what, we're going to do it anyway. I'm going to go boring. I'm going to go MSI. I think Sanchez is going to have a blinder of an opening stint, and then sharing that car with, I think it's Salva Talens, who is a very quick driver. I think they'll be good here.
I'm going all meme on you. I'm going to go Was Cooking Racing Adventures. Sindre Setsour's behind the wheel at the moment. Jack Sedgwick, and a fantastic livery, so why not?
I have a feeling Craig Williams is probably pretty happy about that one. Well, here we go. We are ready to go racing for 2 hours in the Lone Star States. Alejandro Sanchez picks up the throttle, and already we are racing here from the Circuit of the Americas. Up the hill, we will climb in towards turn number 1. Look at that Williams Esports car trying to make a challenge through the very wide turn number 1. Does Sanchez leave him room? No, he doesn't. Sanchez holds on. Now look for Benecke down the hill in towards the S's to try and make something happen. Side by side, just behind them, it's Setsource and Dinez trying to make something happen. It's Setsource that holds on. Through the S's we go. There's a spun around car on the entry to the S's, but no problem for the contenders out front. We work ourselves into that middle sector.
Yeah, that was Vendaval who were round there. A couple of issues at turn 1, as to be expected, and Kova picking up the pieces. We're keeping my eye on them. Obviously, watching their rise is perfect for MSI Esports, though. Alejandro Sanchez, you're quite right, is just pulling away from Sammy Matty Trogan at the moment. A bit of side-by-side at T1 hasn't really helped, but the run out of the S's section and down the hill, it's looked a lot better for the Williams car. And look at the dive there from Redline all the way to the inside, hooking it up and trying to make it stick on BS Competition.
That is Patrick Holtzman, but look at this, ducking and diving. It is a very long back straightaway, still side by side further back, but I'm watching out front. Is there going to be a lunge from Trogan into the braking zone? He's all the way to the inside. That is bold. Can he get it stopped in time? Sanchez is going to squeeze him onto the inside curb. He'll now have the inside for turn number 13 as we get into the switchback section. Great look from Benecke, who's he's in the popcorn seat, as Justin Prince was calling it a couple of days ago. It's now, but Benecke Beneke trying to go around the outside of Sami Matti-Trogan. That is not what you want to do. And Beneke gets turned by Sindre Setsource.
Oh, it was just so light. The contact is so easy to do. There's also more drama with the Volante car behind this. Coming through BS competition, Phil Denez also picking up another spot. There is that Volante car. Red lines dropping backwards. I think there's issues for Beneke. Maybe a slowdown, or maybe it is just damage and trying to get off the racetrack at the moment. It's not gone well. Let's see if it dives down pit lane. And the answer to that is yes.
So those guys, I should say, already have their tickets to the Sim Live event, and well, that might be day done, but across the line to lead lap number 1, it is Alejandro Sanchez, now full 7/10 clear of Sami Matti-Trogan, the Peru Racing Team and Ronin Simsport entry, up into 6th position, but all eyes focused, I think, on that red line blue machine. If you can get past the big red machine, watch for the charge from Patrick Holtzman and Chris Lullum, who were pretty quick in competition last time around. As we look rearwards from Denez, great to hear as well. It's not just an early morning for me here on the west coast of the US. Denez, a Monterrey native, as well, being up very, very early. He's, of course, known for being a driver on the road to Indy, and now you can see there's some damage to that rear wing, so it'll be interesting to see just how compromised he is here in this first hour of the race. We learned it last time around, Lewis. There is a fast repair for these drivers to use, so they'll be able to use that in their one and only pit stop.
Yeah, I think it was just a little bit of a tap on the rear right when going side by side. Obviously, that incident with Beneke, and they were trying to get out of the way. Holtzman was to the right-hand side of Denez, and there was a bit of contact. We'll say, by the way, with the PRT Ronin Simsport car, they're essentially playing here for prize money, or maybe trying to go for the win, but we'll see on that one. They got their ticket to the Hockenheim finale of this season by getting a top 5 in the last round. So they've already been invited to that. They've already covered that one off. As here comes Holtzman down the inside of Phil Denez. Nice move again, but we know the outside line here can be pretty nice, pretty tasty. Gives you the inside, at least for the first part of this double back, switchback, hairpin, quite tricky section. I mean, it's quite frustrating, quite annoying to drive, but when you nail it and make it move, it does create some decent racing at times.
I think that turn 15, the one they're coming out of right now, is probably the most frustrating in that complex of corners, because it's like a braking zone where you're also trying to turn the car in, and anti-lock brake might help you, might hurt you. It depends on how you're doing it. These guys have really fallen off the back of the WASP cooking machine. They're now, what, about 1.5 seconds, almost 2 full seconds behind the breakaway from the front. So this is, in effect, a peloton as those 3 cars out front just stretch their legs. 5 minutes almost done. Let's go ahead and take a look at a replay on the start. This is the bend of
lost him himself.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Maybe cold tires playing a factor there for the number 3 car.
You don't really see that through turn 2 very often. I'm going to say, yeah, cold tires, maybe a little bit too aggressive on turn in, and I don't know if there was a little bit of damage picked up at T1 as well, which might have also added to the incident. See how Beneke got spun. Just such a light tap from Setsource, but it's it is what it is. There's the contact as well with BS competition. Just caught that in the background as Holtzman was trying to get back onto the track. That's where there's a bit of damage on the front left and then rear right of the BS competition and red line respectively. So yeah, it was a tricky complex, but that's always what we expect on lap 1.
Fastest lap, by the way, currently sits with Sami Matti-Trogan. It's only about 400ths quicker than Alejandro Sanchez, so really those cars out front not separated by much. And while there is a draft here that definitely pulls you along this long back straightaway, it is a very long run from turn 11 all the way down into turn 12. It doesn't necessarily help you so much. Here's an issue for David Anderson. That's contact with the blue car. I'm not sure exactly who that was. That might be Joy Seika in the... Oh, so many new names that I'm trying to figure out here. James Keith Racing Machine. And then as we come back to the live pictures, you can see these guys are fighting tooth and nail and still just losing time, hand over fist to the cars in front. On board with Denez, who has been passed by Holtzman. That must have happened down in towards turn number 12.
Yeah, it's got to be in the dive of the braking zone. So yeah, make up that spot. By the way, fast repair was ticked off by Maximilian Beneke. They're not out of the race, though. They are still going way down the order. I think it's 24th spot now. So they're just keeping on the racetrack. And, you know, they're out. Like I say, they're not here to try and book their ticket. They've already got it to Munich. They're just out here for a bit of an entertaining afternoon, have a bit of fun. And to be fair, sometimes if you've been hit out of it, you've been dropped down to the back of the field, but you know that there's quite a large field spread, it's now time to go out and have a bit of fun.
And well, I mean, just like what we saw from COTA, right? I mean, of course, you must also remember Redline, one of those teams affiliated with the BMW Motorsports group now, and as they make their increasing steps into sim racing, you have the likes of BS Competition, the Redlines, then in other simulators you have G2 Sim Racing, so plenty of tie-ins with the real world. Of course, the BS Competition squad has those works drivers for BMWs, the likes of Bruno Spengler that come and compete with them. I think we've seen Philip Eng in the zebra colors on occasion, so always great to have that increased participation from real world motorsports. Right behind the Redline Blue crew though, there is a train of cars that has started to form, and well, if the three out front are allowed to continue to run away, it might be only those three cars fighting for tickets to Sim Live, fighting for our $4,200 in prize money as well. And in terms of prize money, Lewis, I mean, yes, the major prizes are going to be handed out at the end of the year, but almost $40,000 across, what's it, 8 different races? Sorry, I should say $35,000 across 8 different races. It is not insignificant, the amount of investment we're seeing from BMW here.
Yes, a lot of money for people to pick up throughout the season. Of course, you know, you want to get into the BMW Sim Live as the grand finale of the season, and that's what you want to get into, because you know there's going to be a bit more prize money, a bit more this, a bit more that, a bit more pizzazz. But realistically speaking, you're still here to race, you're still here to have fun, you're still here to win a bit of money, because it is on the line. If you've won your ticket, you can still win the prize money, and that's what exactly some of these teams are doing. I will say the Redline Blue car that got out, which is Patrick Holtzman, the one that we're focused on now, when it's got ahead of the BS Competition car, whilst, yes, this train is behind him, it's just because the pace is all very close. It was faster than the MSI Esports Blue car on the previous lap. It was a 2:05.0 from Patrick Holtzman and a 2:05.2 from Alejandro Sanchez, up to a 2:05.3 for Sanchez, a 2:05.6 for Holtzman. So never mind, it's equalised itself back down. But pace is very, very similar for basically everyone right now.
I'm watching the COTA guys who are just carving through the field. I think Valtteri Alander's having some fun now, stuck in 15th position. Really 16 seconds off the race leader, but there you can see on the side-by-side, up the hill, down the inside, they will plunge on the Z Challenger Hong Kong machine. 707 making some moves. Next car in line will be Alpha Esports for 13th position. Always great, Lewis, that you know, when we do the special events, you only have the big teams, let's be honest. You have your Redlines, your Coanders, your MSIs, etc., etc. Here, though, we really get that view of what the entire picture of the iRacing scene looks like. You have your German sim racings in the mix. We're getting to see someone like Alpha Esports for the first time. Z Challenger, we saw them last time from Imola, so always great to see some new names, some new faces here on RaceSpotTV.
Yeah, for some of these teams and such, I was chatting to my friend, Dan Cowell, who's been doing some racing and took part in one of the Long Beach races. There goes Valtteri Alander to look into the inside, but not able to pass the Alpha Esports car. But he was saying that took part in, I can't remember which one it is, the one with the TCR cars and the GC4s or whatever, and they were racing at Long Beach. And it was broadcasted. He was really excited to go and take part, because it was the first time that he could be on a broadcasted race in iRacing. And as much as you've been on a broadcasted race everywhere in sim racing, it's that step where you're sort of like, I'm on camera, I'm part of the scene.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and I think for some of these guys as well, they very much relish that opportunity and enjoy it and thrive in the pressure that sometimes you get. Talking about Sanchez, by the way, he was now broken about a full second away from Sami Matti-Trogan. Last year was a breakout year for him. Multiple victories in the World Championship scene, finishing 3rd in that 2020 campaign. Only 12th in 2021, but working with the Apex Racing team has definitely worked out very well for him and his compatriots in the MSI Esports crew. I do love deliveries that we see from some of these teams, and an MSI one. I don't know about you, Lewis, but one of my favorites. I love the blue and the way it kind of changes as you go to the rear end of that car. So many great liveries there. You've got, of course, the great Williams ones where it changes based on the sponsor. Then you've got the Delight, that is the Wasp cooking machine. Team Redline as well, they've got some great ones. And then the Zebras, I love personally. I've said it since the first round of the season 1 of the BMW SIM GT Cup. That BS competition car just looks splendid. Asymmetric, just sometimes works perfectly.
Yeah, I do love a good asymmetrical design. That's why not taking part in this, but I have been taking part in various bits of sim racing. Anytime you get to see like a Team Fordzilla livery where it's orange,
ooh, yes.
blue, and you've got black, but it is asymmetrical, goes diagonally across the car. I think it looks absolutely fantastic. Quite a bit of damage on the front right of that car. I wonder if we've got the livery for. There's the. I like the Arnage competition car, and to be fair, most of these are really absolutely fantastic. I love the light blue on the R8G Sports Junior car. I prefer it to the normal one. I think the light blue just brings it up a bit. But German SimRacing.de, they've got some fantastic liveries when they're taking part in the Sports Car Open Sprint Challenge. And got some great liveries on the grid. There we go. Look at that.
Oh, yeah, and that's what the spec maps add here on the iRacing service, the ability to have chrome, to have matte, all sorts of different things. I love the way that the bird is slightly different from the rest of the car. I will agree with you, by the way, on the R8G car. I do prefer the lighter blue you have at the front. I would also go so far to say the old R8G colors of 2020 were a little bit better than the 2021 incarnation of the livery.
A bit too dark.
Yeah, exactly. Just a bit too dark, a little bit too samey.
Sorry.
No, I mean, we're trying to be nice. We should probably jump. Let's talk a little bit more about Romain Grosjean, because what a weekend he had. Another second place finish in the NTT IndyCar Series. I'll tell you what, he is odds on for a victory next season, if you ask me. He obviously is familiar with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, having run there, or having tested, I'm sure, at least on the simulator there in Formula One days, but now he is really relishing not just the challenge of IndyCar, but the lifestyle in America. It is great to see how he has just really thrown himself in, and with rumors speculating that he may join the likes of Andretti Autosport for 2021, I am really looking forward to seeing what the future holds for Romain, and maybe we'll see him on the sim in an IndyCar as well.
Yeah, it's the post Formula One career, which is always very, very interesting, and it's nice to see that he's found a little bit of a home very, very quickly as well. And also, it's one of the things that I like. We see this with Beta Racing as well. We see this with RAG. We see this plenty of teams in sim racing where just because of the name as a part of the team, you'd almost be forgiven for sometimes thinking, well, it's just a name though, isn't it? It's just a brand. It's nothing more than that. It's just a brand that's put on it, and then they just race under those colours. There's something more. But no, Romain Grosjean, they all have a little bit of an input. They're keeping an eye on their team. They're supportive of their team, and they know what's going on.
Oh yeah, Romain's very active on sim stuff, especially when it comes to YouTube and his content creation there. So definitely go take a look at that. Not just some of his sim stuff, but then an inside look behind into the garage, I should say, as the gap for the race lead came down only 0.3 of a second at one point in time. Sami Matti Trojan is in full attack mode, and through this right-hand sweeper, reminiscent, of course, of what we see in Istanbul in the former, I should say, current F1 track that now is back in use. It's such an interesting corner. Must be difficult in a GT3 car, given your relative lack of downforce, just being patient, managing the throttle, and up the hill, it's very slightly off camber through turn number 20. 15 minutes in the books. These two cars have now broken away from that wasp cooking machine very slightly, as here's a battle side by side. Oh, there's almost contact between the 10 car, that's Iconic Motorsports, and PLH Racing dueling over 20th and 21st position. Iconic Motorsports did have an interesting race last time around from Imola, hoping for, I think, a slightly better one here. Might have already had some issues. I think I took a look at an incident on my end, Lewis, where Todd Novosad in that number 10 car may have had some contact with Beneke himself. Yeah,
I mean, when you've got these drivers rising up the grid like COTA, like Team Redline and such, I mean, these are teams that, I mean, particularly with Team Redline, who've been around since forever, basically. Pretty much everyone in sim racing knows that team. So when those colours, when those iconic colours and the big names come up against you, or you've got your thing that's telling you how much iRating the guy's got behind it says 11k, you think, sorry, what? Who? Right, okay. It's quite daunting, and so where you're kind of you want to race with them, but they have no idea who you are, so they're just going to try and race past you, race through you in a sense. So, you know, obviously we didn't catch us, have no idea what's going to happen, but you're going to get hard racing when these drivers are rising up the order. Our focus at the front, though, the vision back from MSI Esports on the left and the vision forwards from Williams on the right. It's a close fight. The What's Cooking Machine, Sindre Setsor's not able to keep up at present. Neither is the entire train behind. This is where the gap comes down to like 3/10 or such, because obviously differing lines coming into that hairpin. And you were saying, you know, obviously the comparison is to Turn 8 and Turkey. Obviously 3 major differences. 1, it goes the other way. 2, that you're approaching at quite low speed in comparison to Turkey.
True.
And then, as you were quite rightly saying, it's off amber, whereas Turkey dips in, which, as much as, like you say, it's based on, which quite a lot of this racetrack is based on somewhere else, but they add their own little bit of character to it to sort of spice it up.
And, you know, sometimes the term Tilkodrome is thrown around in a deprecating fashion. I really do enjoy this track, and I'm not just saying that because we're racing here. I've said that for ages. It's just such a different challenge to what you sometimes see. Yeah, exactly. It's just different, and sometimes you need that. And yes, it's got lots of runoff and all of those things that people don't necessarily like about modern racetracks, but it's a challenge, and one that I think these drivers are very much having to really adapt to. Is here comes Fields and Nez. These cars had been slowly closing on that car in 3rd position, but through the S's, really the gaps are just changing around very, very, very rapidly. And in terms of the weather here in the Lone Star State, it's relatively cool in the air. It's only about 25 degrees Celsius. It is a scorching 45 degrees Celsius on the track. More interestingly to me, though, there you go, is the wind. It is blowing these cars around, 24-kilometer-an-hour gusts of wind. It's always going to be an interesting challenge to deal with. Yes, this is a pretty weighty car compared to an open wheeler or something else, Lewis, but that's still a considerable amount of changing wind to be thinking about.
Yeah, a bit of lap traffic, by the way, for the leaders, just hopping out of the way and communicating with them in-game. Chris Russo dropping down a lap at the moment and just trying, so like I say, to get out of the way, which is easier said than done. And you can see it just coming through the foregrounder shot. Like I say, the wind is pushing around, particularly in the higher speed bits through the S's section. It can be very, very challenging indeed.
What's happening to the What's Cooking Machine? It is down in 13th position. Oh, no.
It's because I cursed them. That's why.
Yeah. Is there a technical issue? That's what I wonder.
I think it's a disconnection.
Oh, we've seen something like this happen to Valtteri Alander before, where his internet went very, very poorly for a while, and there's more lap traffic for the red line car. Oh, you do not want to be catching it there on the entry in towards turn number 19. The PRT Ronin car runs a bit wide, and the lap traffic goes into the wall. That's Chris Russo, who is just in the effort to stay out of the way, has run into some trouble. That Ronin car really abusing track limits. I guess he's got some incidents to burn for now. I think that What's Cooking Machine might be done as side-by-side through that triple right-hander.
I think it was just, like I say, a flat-out disconnection, unfortunately, which is a terrible shame. This being, though, Alpha Esports on the right-hand side of the shot, battling out with the Z Challenger car that's got through in all of that. And we saw Alpha Esports battling it out with COTA not too long ago. Dream Factory have also got through, and they are charging. They started in 27th. They're up to 13th at the moment. They are marching forward, gaining a couple of positions on that lap. But look who's behind them. Redline are here.
And they are here for some fun. So Redline Red now back up into 16th position. And yes, confirmation that it looks like Sindre Setsos has had that technical issue. The What's Cooking Machine might therefore be done for the day. Heartbreak, because I know Setsos and Jack Cedric were just here for a little bit of fun. Drivers that compete for various different outfits in sim racing. Cedric part of the NX Racing crew. Sindre Setsos part of Core Sim Racing. So having some fun teaming up just to get out there on track. And well, Craig's Setup Shop Discord, I'm sure, is going to be abound with conspiracy theories. Leaves then 2 cars out front. Oh, Jack Cedric is rolling himself out, so great to see. At least they'll try and recover what they can. They'll be down in 23rd position. It does leave just 2 cars fighting for the lead, then half a second separating MSI and Williams.
Well, at least we get to see that livery still. I love the rear of it. 2 guys, 2 bananas, little Pepes. It's, like I say, you've got to have a bit of fun. I like the idea that, yes, whilst we're all teams this and teams that, there is this merger in sim racing where some teams will, you'll just go and have a bit of fun with someone else, and if you're going to, you might as well have a bit of fun with it.
And of course, like I said, that livery painted by Craig Williams himself, so I'm sure he'll be thrilled to at least get it back out there. Seeing them in the inset, we are watching Arnage competition hunting down the R8G Juniors just in front. A bit of separation between them and the cars in front. About 2 seconds to the PRT Ronin Simsport car. Dinez up the hill, uses that to effectively slow his car down that a little bit more. These cars really now separated by almost 5 full seconds from your race leader. So they're really, Lewis, only fighting over the prize money. But what we sometimes see here in these 2-hour sprints is in that pit stop window, not much time, especially given how much time you spend full throttle at a track like this. You can play some alternate strategies, and just, I say strategy, it's about finding your window to come down onto pit road, making sure you're not entering a very busy pit lane, making sure you're not exiting straight into the mouth of traffic.
Yeah, timing around here is going to be critical. With such a large differential in iRacing and speed from the driver, it's actually really, really tricky to manage around here. You've kind of just got to go with, if we come out with people, then we'll just go on the attack. It'll just be what it is. And you take the hits. It's just how it goes. You should be able to clear the traffic quite easily, but realistically speaking, I'm curious to see if anyone's going to try the strategy. Where we saw at Imola, some no tyres, some taking tyres, and it's always. I'm always curious to see who's going to go which way, especially around a circuit like this where I'm not too sure how high the tyre is, but with the heat, it'll be a little bit tricky.
I'm almost 100% sure you take 4 tyres at a place like this.
Surely.
And you get you're allowed to effectively by the amount of time it takes to switch around the tires. Here's side by side with Alpha Esports and the Z Challenger Calith Racing Hong Kong number 8 car down the back straightaway, and that move's already done. Draft, I'm sure, on offer, and maybe just a little bit of lower wing in effect, because of course this is a open setup race. Drivers therefore get that ability to tweak that car to not just their liking, but to their teammates' liking as well. Sometimes that's the biggest challenge that you have when you come to a facility like this. It's a facility as well that hosts so many different forms of racing. You have Formula One that comes here, MotoGP has come here in the past. Yes, we've seen GT3 competition around this facility. And then, more interestingly, we've seen in the recent months, as here comes some more lap traffic for this group of cars third on back. We've seen the NASCAR guys come here, Lewis, and have a little bit of fun. I do love jumping into a stock car and ringing it around some of the tracks here on the iRacing service. I think this track, though, in particular, is really a different kind of a challenge because slow speed corners, traction out. Ooh, are you seeing something?
Yeah, I am. That Russo's just been spun out by the R8G Esports Junior car and nearly cost the position to Arnage as well. That battle for 6th place. So just trying to get out of the way with the lap traffic, but it's so difficult to manage when you've got such different speeds.
And there you can see that was Russo once more being slow. I've taken a look at the replay, and hopefully we'll get it up for the rest of the guys as well, because I'm not blaming the lap traffic here. I'm a little bit on the side of saying the R8G car was a bit overly aggressive and actually spun that car around. Wow. Well, lap traffic, maybe I cursed them in a different way here, Lewis, when I said that there wasn't going to be much lap traffic.
It's always, I mean, look, like I say, when you're going up against teams of this kind of level, there is that spin. I mean, I can see it from both sides. It's an enormous differential in speed. That's really where it's at. And R8G have a lot of pressure on their shoulders. I mean, there is 4 cars rather, directly on them. So, yeah, I'm not going to say that that's acceptable, because it's not acceptable behaviour, but I kind of get it.
I know what you mean.
It's not intentional, is what it is. What I'm trying to say. There's no intent there. It's just the difference of speed and not being able to anticipate that as someone's learning.
It's similar to what we saw from Imola with the traffic through Variante Alta, isn't it? It's just that unfortunate circumstance of catching the traffic at the wrong place at the wrong time. Maybe some slight inexperience from the lap traffic, especially with the caliber of racing and field that we have further up. So maybe that's what we're seeing. As we continue single file, at least for the time being, about halfway through this first stint, I just want to talk about some of the other guys and series that have really come to this facility in Austin, Texas. I mean, yes, you've had, you know, those mainstream, if you will, sort of competitions. You've also had V8 supercars. They came here for a one-off race in 2013. They raced around a slightly shorter configuration that kind of cut out the second half of the second sector. So you get through the S's, then you hook a left instead of climbing up the hill. Rallycross, you've seen them both in the America's Rallycross Championship, the World Rallycross Championship as well. IMSA has come here for about 3 or 4 years. The WEC has come here. It really is a world-class racing facility, and I must say, it is a track that I really wish we got a bit more action at, Lewis, because it's one that obviously all tracks have financial difficulties in the reality of modern motorsports, but it is one that I'd be very sad to lose when it comes to F1 competition. Yes, we'll have a race at Miami in 2022, but there's nothing that compares to a proper circuit like this that is designed specifically for F1 cars.
It's kind of one of those things with motorsport where we've seen, you know, how many times have you heard this story? Millions and millions have been invested in creating a brand new racetrack for whatever country it is. It's open and has 3-4 years of decent to moderate racing, and then it closes because they don't get enough. They're used for a few weeks in a year. You know, Formula One visits there once a year or whatever, and then it's basically closed outside that. Whereas COTA has been used, like you say, in an awful lot. It's a multi-purpose racetrack. It's not just used for one formula. It's you know, used for plenty of national competitions, used for plenty of international competition. And as you say, like, some things come over here for a bit of fun and entertainment, you know, a bit of an oddity. And I think, I hope anyway, it stands test time. There's only a couple of things on the racetrack that I'm always sat there thinking, oh, I wish that was different. One of which is the runoff, which is, you know, a classic modern circuit thing where we're all sat here thinking, I wish there wasn't runoff, but they keep doing it for obvious safety reasons. And number two is that switchback section is really annoying, basically because I can't do it.
Well, how about this? Runoff at COTA or runoff at Paul Ricard? I mean, no, we're not going to get into the Paul Ricard things. I really dislike Paul Ricard in general. Alpha Esports at the Sea Challenger Hong Kong was seen still having a fun little scrap further down the field, but here down the back straightaway, is there enough momentum for Dinez to make something happen? I don't think he's close enough. It would take a full Daniel Ricciardo Sen to get down the inside into turn 12, and I think he's just that little bit too far behind. Yes, he's going to have to hold station, at least for the time being. Out front, those two cars are continuing to gap the rest of these contenders. Sami Trogan being very, very patient at this point in time, Lewis. I would suspect he is just holding station, maybe saving a bit of fuel, just trying to open up his pit stop window and the things that he can do. And of course, he'll be handing that car over to the always quick Dominic Stave.
It's kind of hard to work out right now if this is Sami Trogan driving well within himself, or whether this is full limit and it's just the two are so equally matched. I kind of get a feeling it's actually the second, because if you were controlling yourself, if you were controlling your own pace, you'd be closer. You'd be right on the rear end. You'd be in that slipstream, you know, using it to its fullest extent. I just think there hasn't been the opportunity to get by MSI Esports, and as much as some fuel has been saved and the such here, I still think this is just legitimately two drivers, two teams on incredible pace with each other. I mean, at the moment, it's not the worst thing in the world because they're pulling away quite a bit from Holtzman and Dinez behind.
About 0.4 of a second last time in terms of that gap that they pulled away. So yeah, I mean, yeah, they're really extending and just stretching their legs, and I would not be surprised if maybe, like you said, just holding a little bit further back because he's not able to close. But at the same token, Trogan is always quick, be it in a real-world car, be it on the sim. And I was mentioning this yesterday, Lewis, when we were talking about someone like Kevin Ellis Jr. I mean, it is one thing to just be quick in one sort of car. It is another to be quick across multiple cars, multiple disciplines of action. And Sami Trogan, an iRacing Rallycross World Champion in 2019. I just had to get my years right because it feels very crazy to think we're in 2021. Now, of course, part of the Walkenhorst Motorsports crew in the real world as well. It's great to see that overlap where Trogan's competing here with the always quick Williams Esports team, now getting that experience of going to tracks like the Nordschleife, competing in 24-hour events, not just on the sim, but in the real world as well. What a treat that must be, and what a difference it must be for the young driver to try and understand.
It's probably quite a bizarre step. I mean, obviously, whilst in sim racing and such, you're learning to drive in a sense. The step from sim to real is always a daunting step for so many reasons. Like it's almost impossible to list. Of course, you've got the G-forces to deal with. You've got the idea that you're being thrown around the car, that the car doesn't drive exactly as it would in the sim. You've also got the thing to think of that, hey, this thing's worth a lot of money, and if I crash it, that's a lot of money that's being thrown out, and that kind of stuff, which that's quite hard to actually, everyone reacts to that very, very differently, depending on how they've been, whether they had any sort of motorsports career or whatever before. So it's quite a daunting task, but obviously, you get an opportunity, you take it, no doubt, and Sami Trogan's are clearly a very high quality driver. It's just always very interesting to see the switch from one to the other. Obviously, we've had a lot of real races come into sim racing. Now we're starting to see, we've said this time and time again, sim races going into real. Obviously, to move, from my opinion anyway, to move from real racing into sim racing, it is an easier switch than it is from sim racing to real, at least from how I see it, mostly for the fact that they don't necessarily take it seriously. Meanwhile, when a sim racer moves into real racing, it's like, this is my one only opportunity that I'm ever going to get in life, and it needs to be perfect, and it's so much pressure. No,
and as Iku Merakala does point out, it's not like Sami has not been competing in real-world motorsports. Yeah, he's coming from a motorsports background and enjoying time in sim racing, but really, I think his sim racing career has kind of opened doors in real-world motorsports that might not necessarily have been fully open. Dinez ducking and diving, I think for a moment thought about a lunge, but still just holding station as the battle continues to rage on between the Alpha Esports and the Z Challenger car. This time it's Z Challenger that gets out just in front. These guys up the hill through turns 7 and 8. They are for 18th and 17th and 18th position. It's going to be more lap traffic coming very shortly for our race leaders. I mean, already only 25 cars on the leading lap. One retiree, that was the James Keith Racing machine that we saw, I think, involved in an incident with one of the other cars down the field. Have to wait and see just how much it affects these cars as they continue to go. Here's a look at the movers and shakers. Of course, Beneke down 10 after his early spin and resulting trip down onto pit road. Valtteri Alander, 15 positions gained, still outside the top 10, and with some work to do because he's 7 seconds adrift of the German sim racing car in front of him. But never say never. He'll be, of course, handing on over to Thomas Tesla in the second half of this race.
Yeah, and we know they're a speedy outfit, winning the previous race of the season. Obviously, Pekka Toivonen was behind the wheel that time rather than Valtteri Alander, but a very talented outfit. Like I say, they're just here for a bit of fun, a bit of entertainment, and if you're going to do that, you might as well start at the back and have a bit of a laugh. And they've risen up the order very well, but they're now at that point where every team they meet is of a higher quality and the gaps are bigger. But realistically, they're not insanely far off the back of the train for what is 6th place, which isn't that far off the train for the podium. So, I mean, if Kova, it's a long stretch, by the way, but if Kova leave here with any sort of prize money, I'll be genuinely shocked.
Yeah, I think they might have had aspirations for that at the start, but I think now it's a little bit too much of a tall order and quite a big ask for the 707 crew. Must say, we were talking about liveries. That is a splendid livery. It really is, and it looks good on a GT car. It looks great on an open wheeler as well.
Does look a little bit like the West Surrey Racing BMW that's taking part in the British Touring Car Championship, which, by the way, it's BMW related, so fair enough. Took their 100th win earlier today, so good on them. Nice to see BMW doing well in that. I do have a little bit of a soft spot for BMWs.
Well, what we do need to figure out is, I should actually bug our producer Hugo Luis about this. Hugo, get the RaceSpotTV bank account wide open. Turner Motorsports has a couple of BMW M6 GT3 cars for sale because they'll be taking delivery of some M4 GT3 cars next year, and they've already said they can give us a deal on it. I'm sure it's only a couple of $100,000.
Yeah, nice low. I mean, this thing is with motorsport, it's such an expensive thing to enter, and yeah, we all know that. Like, we know that motorsport's expensive. We know that sim racing's that milligram. I mean, sim racing isn't exactly cheap, but it can be, depending on how much you want to spend. Realistically, you can get racing for. Realistically, for not that much, you can get racing on an Xbox controller if you really want to. Although I wouldn't recommend it. It's
not on iRacing.
So when I moved house, this was 5-6 years ago, I didn't have anywhere to set my wheel up, so I did do some racing in an MX-5, obviously a very long time ago, on an Xbox controller.
How did it go?
Never again. Never again. I used to race on a controller on R Factor a very, very long time ago in 2013, but yeah, I was like, nope, I am not doing that ever again. Not a chance.
Yeah, no, thank you. I don't think you could pay me to try and race on iRacing with a controller. And I think, I mean, when you're talking about relatively little money, yes, it's what, $200 for a wheel and maybe another.
Yeah, a moderate wheel, yeah.
And then maybe a total of $1,000 once you include a PC, a low-end PC and a monitor. That's the word I was trying to get to. But at the end of the day, that's the cost of a set of tires for a race weekend. If you're going racing even in a spec MX-5 here in, you know, sports car SCCA racing here in the US. So I mean, we're talking about it, yes, it's $1,000. It is still much less than what it costs to go racing in full metal motorsports. There's still Denez hanging back with that damaged rear wing. I'm taking a look on social media, by the way, just to see what's going on in terms of the action from the teams. Well, BS Competition says their wing is damaged, but Denez is fighting hard as per usual. And then we see the likes of BMW Esports being very, very active. And just a reminder, we are live not just on RaceSpotTV, but on BMW Esports social media as well. As there's Alexander Bata fighting with the white car in front. That is Vendaval Sim Racing. Not such a beautiful livery for Kobe Williams there.
No, they've not stuck their livery on. I do have it, you know, it's on trading phase. It does look very nice, by the way, but yeah, obviously the way they're spinning it, some teams or whatever don't. It's a bit of a last minute thing. They think, oh yeah, actually maybe I will race in it, and then they've not done the preparation and such for it. So driving around in just a white car at the moment. Decent move though to get by Batter down into that sort of cut twist back section that's so frustrating. But they're having this battle which is kind of continuing. They're just a little bit off the train ahead, and ideally they'd want to kind of stop fighting, because Roland Sim Sport are large competition, and the R8G Junior car that's ahead, they're not out of reach.
Not necessarily, but the cars in front of the R8G team are now 4 and a bit seconds down the road. So, yeah, those cars are way out of reach, and well, the gap for the race lead has ballooned up. Alejandro Sanchez just extending the advantage 0.3 the last time around. It's now 1.5 seconds the gap to the Williams Esports car in the number 25, and Sami Matti Trogan now has some work to do. 20 minutes left in this stint before he hands it on over to his teammate Dominic Stabers. Ooh, down the inside, that's a late lunge from Bada. Can he stick it there, and does he get the elbows out? Oh, he leaves just enough room for Kobe Williams, but they'll drag themselves down this 1 kilometer back straightaway down into turn 12.
Yeah, we'll see what's going to happen here. We've seen the dive on the brakes work sometimes, but those are more when we're looking at it as a dive. This is where they're going in side by side. So realistically speaking, Alexander Bata does definitely have an advantage here. To the inside, heavy on the brakes, might release them a little bit to run out wide and cover off the advances of Vendaval Sim Racing. Once again, we head into this section where everything's opened up. It was a tighter line on entry from Bata, and just keeping at bay the Vendaval car behind as we ride on board now, and no way to pass for Kobe Williams at the present, which, say, it was a nice clean move. A little bit bold, a little bit abrasive on the run into the back straight, but it was cleaned off very, very nicely.
I've got a question for you, Lewis. Yeah. I know you're kind of a fitness guy. You like to go biking and whatnot. Does the prospect of climbing up 419 flights of stairs sound appealing to you? Well, the great thing about that triple right-hander at turn 16 through 18 is that observation tower. I must say, it is a wonderful feature. It's 77 meters high, or for our American friends, 251 feet up in the air. It gives you a full 360-degree view of the track and of downtown Austin. It is accessible to the public for a small fee, and there's been some very interesting YouTube content that I've seen produced from that tower, the likes of Dude Perfect that went up there and tried to throw some aeroplanes, not paper airplanes, but these were more styrofoam kind of deals. See how many flips they would do coming down the tower, and I think went so far, and oh, that's going to be lap traffic. Oh, just gets out of the way in time. German sim racing car almost makes contact through the S's. Yeah, that one's Russo hopping out of the way once again. I mean, there's also a great YouTube video that was made on there or whatever. Yeah, I think that was where the microphone was, where meow was made, wasn't it? That was up there. That was on the tower. Did that guy ever get a name other than Nyum guy? Nope. No, he did not. That was one of my favorite moments of watching F1 in history. I must say that was just it was fantastic. I've never been more confused. I was, you know, with some Formula One races, whatever. Like you have it on, and then you go and do something else. And I'm pretty sure I was sorting something else out in my room and whatever. And then I just heard, I was like, what, have I accidentally left it on Discord or something? The view from it, and it's like you say. I mean, I'd love to go up there. I mean, if you're scared of heights, I probably wouldn't recommend it. I'm not too great with heights, but in this sense, what a view it would be. Our producer Hugo Luis is getting fancy for us, and you get a great view of that switchback complex. And well, I just decided to do a quick search on social media to figure out if we ever at least found the guy's face. And what do you know? He actually recorded a video of him doing himself, it. Yeah. Oh, this is fantastic. I am loving it. I must say. I mean, I understand why. I mean, the mic was right there. The temptation to do that is just unbelievable. I mean, you would have to at some point be tempted to do something like that, whether it be to give a full neon or even something else. I'm just glad that his first thought was to make noises and not do anything too silly, because that would have ruined it if you'd have gone, overboard, and I probably would have sneezed, but it's fine. The best part about new F1, I feel like the older F1 before Liberty and the changing of the way that they view online and digital content might have looked down on that, but no, the F1 guys got well and truly into the fun, and I mean, I'm just looking on Twitter. It's great to finally be able to put a face to those beautiful meows. So there you go, F1 approves. Just remember, you might still get in trouble if you decide to do that. On board with PRT Ronin as we're riding around in 5th position. Gap between Trogan and Sanchez up front, the MSI and Williams crew. They're now separated by 2.6 seconds, knocking on the wood, Lewis. But I think for the first time, I might have picked something correctly here. Whoa. It's early, but you never know. Holy cow, that is a bold statement to make. I mean, obviously we've got it's looking very good for MSI, I will say that. We are approaching a pit stop sequence where we're going to see them switch out driver and then switch over, so Salvatalen should jump in for Alejandro Sanchez. We'll say with MSI Esports and their runs so far in the season, they did season 1 when they were driving in that BMW M8. They had a second place at Suzuka. I'm pretty sure they started that one from pole position, if I remember correctly, at Suzuka. They also had a top 5 finish 2 other times this season. I'm pretty sure we had one at Road Atlanta, and maybe one at Silverstone, or maybe the season finale at Nürburgring. They definitely had 3 top 5 finishes though, which, when you consider there's only 5 races, you're in the top 5 in 3 of them. They are a very, very strong team, but when you're playing kind of second fiddle to the likes of Redline and VRS Commander, it can be very, very frustrating. But here, no Commander, just Redline, but they've not even had to fight with them. It's been Williams they've been battling with realistically. They're taking full advantage and seeming to match this car very nicely. It's a bit more lap traffic causing problems for the trio battling it out for the final spot on the podium with a final bit of prize money. 15 minutes to go in this first portion of the race. Second drivers will take over these M4s and take it to the checkered flag. If we're now thinking forward a little bit, of course we've got Bathurst at the end of the month, and then it's a very long wait until we'll go racing once more at the end of October for the final round of regular season competition, if you will, the penultimate round in Season 2. It's one of these situations now where if you're Williams Esports, you've got one crew qualified for the season finale with, who was it, Josh Thompson, and I forget the other driver. I really do apologize to the Williams Esports crew. Then you've got this current outfit, Sami Mehta. Laissez back, that's who it was. They have so many quick drivers, I didn't want to get it wrong. Then you've got these guys who will be looking as well. And ultimately, I think what we saw in that first season finale from the Nürburgring, Lewis, is having multiple cars is very much an advantage to be able to work together, to be able to play the team game. And ultimately, it was Coanda that took both of the tickets for two of their teams that were on the line in that race from the Nürburgring. So I think this is at least promising for Williams Esports, even if they aren't going to punch their tickets here today.
Yeah, like you say, you need multiple cars in that final race. I mean, there's quite a lot that are already up there. Essentially what will happen is, at least as far as I remember from last season, is so the winner obviously gets the ticket to Munich, and then if the winner has already won before, then it obviously goes to the next team. But then it's about the 4 teams behind that then get their ticket to the, or get the invite rather to the finale of this season at the Hockenheim Ring, and obviously that'll move around, so because you can't win 2 invitations to that, so they go to the next team. It is a little bit of a complicated thing. It does take a little bit for them to go through. I do know of the top lot at the moment that the BS Competition 89 has already got an invite to the finale. Of course, on the grid, we know that Kova already has a ticket to Munich. Williams Chill Blast, as you were saying, not Williams, so that Williams, the 25 there, is a different entry, so it does count towards a different entry to Hockenheim, so essentially this would be good for them. And then, of course, PRT Ronan Simsport, who are in 5th place at the moment. They qualified in 7th at Imola, and they moved up to 5th before the end of the race. They got their invite to Hockenheim, which means they've already got an invite to Hockenheim, so they're able to fight this as hard as they want because they've got their invite for the season finale. They're here for basically just prize money. So, you know, why not go on the attack? Because they're looking like a monster team right now in this car.
We'll have to wait and see. The gap between MSI and this group on the left-hand side is now up to a full 10 seconds. The right-hand side, it's still that battle between German Sim Racing and Vendeval. Guess who has caught them up? It is Kova, it is Valtteri Alander. So top 10 is on the cards, and really at this rate of knots, I mean, might even be a top 7 finisher. Oh, Vendeval is blocked all the way to the inside. That's a little bit naughty, if you ask me, from the German Sim Racing car to move that late. And, well, the German Sim Racing car deep under the brakes loses not 1 but 2 positions.
Yeah, Kova. I did say they were closing in on this. Their pace has been pretty much comparative to Alejandro Sanchez at the front, so an easy way for Valtteri Alander to pick up a spot, and there'll be another one. Oh, I thought I was going for a spin then, but no, it's just obviously how tight the radius is of that corner. Kova, though, Valtteri Alander started from not far off the rear end of the field, gaining that position. I mean, it was a little bit naughty. Not the greatest angle to see it from, but I kind of think it might have been all right, especially in the sense that they completely missed the corner, did German Sim Racing. So, you know, fair enough, top 10 move. But, you know, it was aggressive in the defence, but I do feel it was proactive enough that, you know, that they were still ahead, and it was them making the decision to move all the way over to kind of get where I'm coming from.
I've seen naughtier things, that's for sure, at this track. I mean, especially with a track that's so wide as Kova, down the inside, up the hill, and it is Valtteri Alander now into 9th position. Now the work sets forward, 4 and a bit seconds to Ronin Simsport and that group of cars in front. I would not be surprised if that Kova car is in the shout for prize money, especially now that they're clear and can really just try and work on closing on the group of cars in front of them. Let's see if Kobe Williams can maybe use the draft to follow through. 10 minutes to go, and we will get into that pit stop window. And it's an interesting pit lane here, Lewis. You've got that left-hand entry on the kind of entry into...
Oh, what's happened there?
That is lap traffic, and once more, Dinez has been caught up with the lap traffic.
Yeah, also taking an enormous hit. It was a little bit confusing to see it just with the extra car in there, but lap traffic really causing an issue for Team Red Line Blue, that's now going to lose the position as PRT Ronan Simsport. I said they're here just for prize money, and there goes the move to the inside. There's a bit of damage, or quite a bit of damage, on Patrick Holtzman car over the rear end. It's been clobbered by BS Competition, Phil Dinez behind, and keeping well out of trouble, and PRT Ronan Simsport are now up into the podium.
The question now is how significant is the damage to both the Red Line and the BS Big Red Machine, because if They've lost some top-end performance. PRT might be able to scramble away, but if they can stick out there, they might be okay and get to the pit stop window to use that fast repair. It was a bit of a calamity, not necessarily any sort of similar issue to what we saw at Imola, where it was slow traffic through the Variante Alta. This time it was just a spinning car. There you can see it was Stefan Lenzen who just lost the rear end by himself, and nowhere for the red line or the BS competition car to go. And so really, ultimately, if we can take one more look at that, you'll see that for Phil Denez, no time to respond. He would have had his view. Here you go, on board with the number 89 car that's confusingly named the BS 489 car. Inside of the red line blue car he goes. Holtzman and Denez getting very familiar with one another. Now the question really is, can Denez hold on? It's not been... Denez was convinced, I think, Lewis, that they would have won last time if not for lap traffic. And it's hard to argue against that, given how, even after the damage, they charged through the field. And then once the damage got repaired, Nathan Lewis might have been one of the quickest cars on track. And if not for a slight moment in the entry into turn number 1, they would have finished in 3rd position.
Yeah, it's like I say, it's one of those frustrating things, but you know, it's all the classic shoulda, woulda, couldas of sim racing and motorsport. There's so many of them. It's just part of the fun. CMSRacing.com, hopping out of the way and maybe clobbering the back of Phil Denez there just a little bit. With these cars with damage, they're just trying to get to the pit stop window. We know they've got the fast repaired. They'll come in, they'll get it ticked off. If they can just survive to that point and not be forced down pit lane a bit earlier, and to be fair, it's looking good for that, but when you consider the damage on them, they might be going a bit slower. You've got RHG Junior coming in behind. Let's take a look on board with PRT Ronan Sim Sport just to see all this incident happening and how to gain from it. Just saw it happening, got on the brakes, got out of the way and gained both spots. But yeah, RHG Junior will be catching. Arnage will be joining them, as will the other Ronan car, as will Kova.
Oh, that's a good point. These guys lost about 4 seconds in that melee. And here's the look at the move down the inside of turn number 12. Really nothing that the red line car could do given the run that the Ronin car had. And he tried the over-under, just not able to make it work. Really does mean cars out front, no pressure for Alejandro Sanchez or Sami Matti Trogan now, with almost 4 seconds separating those two cars. They know they keep it clean. They will have some prize money in their pockets. MSI will be heading to Sim Live. Williams will be heading to Hockenheim. Up the hill they go, 11% grade in terms of that climb up the hill. It does mean you can slam on the brakes that little bit later and just attack the corner that much more. RHG now only 2 seconds adrift from 5th position. As we jump on board with the Zebra, you can see that front end has crumbled up just that little bit more.
Yeah, I don't know, the turn one was about 160 degrees, 150 degrees round. It's, you know, it's nearest makes a difference, 180, a full hairpin at the top of the hill. But I say it rises up so high, but it's not a banked corner. It flattens out. It's banked a little bit, but it's not. It's just obviously in comparison to the rise up, it flattens out, and then you're always waiting for the front end of the car to bite to go for it. It's why you actually don't see that many moves into it, because the braking zone is so short, because you're using gravity to slow the car down for the most part. And then, yeah, you're hooking it in with that blind aim. It's always one where you look to the inside, you go onto the dirty line, and I think most sim racers and drivers, when they do that, you always think, I'm missing this corner, because you can't help it. You're throwing it in there at such speed that you're going to follow the car. It's a later apex. As much as it's so tight through there, you're taking a late apex to get that run down the hill, and again, gravity will assist you accelerating towards the S's.
And in terms of lap time, I was just taking a look at the track record for a GT3 car. It was a different manufacturer of GT3. That was a 2:05.558 set in American GT3 competition. The fastest lap of the race, a 2:05.142. So interesting to see that we are very, very close to hitting the same kind of lap time as to when real-world GT3 cars come to this facility. We are moments away from the pit stop window. Question is, who comes in first? Who blinks? Who comes out into traffic? Because taking a look at the track map here, it's what, a give or take, going to be a 60-second hold, or rather 60-second trip down pit road, especially when you consider the driver change that will be going on. There is the very strong likelihood that, especially these cars that we're watching right now, and you can see on the right-hand side, already a couple of cars have made their way down, further down in the field. You will end up in some lap traffic, and it's not necessarily where you want to be.
Yeah, Alpha in the pit lane, as well as Chris Russo. We'll say, by the way, I'm going to give you a couple of names here that have been, they've joined, they've had a little bit of a watch to see what's been going on. We'll throw some of those out there. Pash Gergis, Charlie Collins, David Williams. Co-Ander keeping an eye on things, clearly. It's just a nice, interesting thing.
Just watching the competition they should expect at Sim Live later this year. Of course, your reigning Sim Live king is none other than Josh Rogers himself. What a wonderful move. Yeah. He sprung at the final chicane at Silverstone when Max Benecke sent a move, I believe it was on Graham Carroll for the Red Bull Racing team, and just forced them wide on the exit onto the main straightaway. Josh Rogers saw it coming, took it 3 wide, and went into the race lead and never looked back. I think it was $12,000 in his pocket for that one move. It was a 25-minute sprint last time, and I was mentioning last time at Imola, Lewis, I think the format for this Sim Live, if anyone from BMW is watching, let's get all of your BMW cars involved. Let's start maybe with the GT4s. Let's then go to the GT3s, and let's finalize things in the GTEs. Let's make it a 3-race competition. Let's get some points in the mix as well.
I mean, I'm still sort of sad because I like seeing the merger of sim racing as a whole. I mean, I know that VCO have tried doing this in a sense of bringing some simulators together, and so you got the iRacing, you got Avax, you got of course competency only. But where BMW the Sim Live last year, obviously we had the BMW 120, obviously it was a 25-minute sprint race, so fair enough. We also had the BMW M4 GT3 Racing Cup from R-Factor 2 as well, on that side of things. I'd like to see the grids of those in the same. Obviously, that's not going to happen because of how the formats are. They're doing their own thing on format, like we're doing our own thing. But it would be great if one day that would be the competition, to have that merger over the entire thing, because that would be just cool.
Now that would be very interesting, and then you have to challenge yourself and really understand a little bit more about various simulators.
Josh would definitely win. I'll say it now, he races in all these simulators and wins in all of them.
It would be hard to topple, I think, Josh Rogers' trips down onto pit lane for the PRT Ronin team as well as Redline Blue. BS Competition elect to stay out there, an interesting call. It's an hour and 2 minutes left in this race. They haven't even gotten to the halfway point. It might be close on fuel for these guys.
It is a touch early, but necessarily speaking, especially if you sat in slipstream, it's not the highest fuel burn of circuits that you go to. You're running through the S's section where you're not at full throttle for quite a long period of time. You're kind of out of it, trying to get the nose, and you're using the power obviously to accelerate, but more so for weight transfer to get the nose plopped in wherever exactly you need it. It's not as simple as you're just constantly on the throttle. So in that sense, I kind of guess they'd save a little bit of fuel, but mostly, particularly less so for PRT, Ronin Simsport, more so for the likes of Redline. They'd want to get into the pit lane and repair that car so they can go on the attack. This could be good for Redline.
Well, that's why I'm a bit surprised by the BS Competition car staying out, as I'm watching Alejandro Sanchez, who is still out there on the track, so extending his stint out the front and really just continuing to build the buffer. Does Williams choose to come in? No, they stay out there. Does BS respond to the cars behind them? Yes, they do. It's a late entry. You can do that here and just kind of arc it a little bit more. Dinez will hand over to recently signed up with the Zebras. It will be the Japanese driver Ritomo Miyata. Celebrated his birthday just a couple of days ago. Let's see if he can put the cherry on the cake and get some additional prize money in his pocket. Kova then up into the top 5 just through the cycle of pit stops. I did notice it was a long stop for the Ronin and the Redline car, almost 60 seconds plus just in the box itself. Let's watch, does Dinez and his teammate do anything different? 4 tires clearly then on offer for the Ronin and Redline machines.
Yeah, no surprise to see them taking 4 tires. Obviously around the circuit, this may not be high on fuel, but it is quite high on tires. It's quite a smooth surface, especially when it was scanned. Obviously these days it's actually quite bumpy. around here. The MotoGP riders were complaining about this a couple of years ago when they came here, saying that the circuit was just, I mean, if anyone's watched any of the slow-mos running down into the into turn 12, it's so bumpy these days. But at this point, it's not actually that bad. It's quite a smooth track. It's not really ridiculously high in tyre wear, but it's the temperature that's the killer here. It's 46 degrees track temperature now. It's gone up as we pass into the second half of the race. So I'm not surprised to see them essentially forced to switch tyres on the pit stop. But I would be in the boat if they'd need it, and it looks like BS Competition are going to lose out a little bit more here as they start rolling now.
It was a couple of seconds longer, maybe just having to put a bit more fuel in the car up the hill. Redline makes the move up now into net third position. Can Ronan get the undercut down the hill in towards the S's? They will try side by side, a little bit too far behind. Redline holds on, and it's now Chris Lullum behind the wheel of that Redline blue machine. Joined up full-time with the Redline crew in 2021. He's got the ever-quick John Vining, who I did see in our YouTube chat just a little bit ago, now behind the wheel. Here comes your race leader, though. This is the money stop for these guys. No mistakes can be made. It will be Sanchez handing that car off. It will be Trogan handing the Williams Esports car off. They go into the box. You can see the aggressive angle that Sanchez has lined his car up in. He will get out, and who jumps in? Will it be Salva Talents? No, it looks like Christian Lamella will be the one taking over. Let's see what he can do as Sammy Matty Trogan hands that one over to Dominic Stabe.
Chris Lamella does have a top 5 alongside Salva Talents. That was at Road Atlanta, finished in 4th position that day as far as my stats go, just behind VRS Coanda Simsport, Team Redline, and another VRS Coanda Simsport car as well. So, you know, a decent pace. So does have a little bit of oh sorry, it was actually the Nürburgring rather, was Lamella, but it does have a little bit of experience in the car, so I'm not really fearful at the moment, so we'll keep our fingers crossed.
The gap between the PRT Ronin car and the big red machine for BS Plus, by the way, is about 2 seconds, so Miata has a bit of work to do to compensate for the longer full time that I think we saw from him. As now who's into the pit lane is Vendaval of the 5 and German Sim Racing in the 337. There goes your race leader, still waiting for R8G, Arnage Competition, and the Dream Factory teams to come down onto pit road. What's the gap going to be as these cars get up to speed? As there you can see your current race leader, R8G Jr. and Valentin Mandernak. He's coming through into that switchback section. More lap traffic for the Redline and PRT cars. You can see the BS Zebra coming up the hill, trying to close them down just behind. I would assume the R8G car is coming down this time. It's been a very lengthy run for some of these cars, so great to see that some teams just able to extend the mileage that little bit further than the rest of the field. Down the hill in towards that off-camber turn 19 where, depending on what series comes here, alternate track limits are taken into consideration. And indeed, the Romain Grosjean team down onto pit lane. They will hand over the race lead. Does Arnage Competition follow? Yes, the pink BMW down to pit lane speed as well. Yeah, surely they won't be able to go much further than where we're at the moment. It's always just interesting to see as Zed Turner are going to lose out as well now to Kova. Kova post pit stop and on the charge again, so passing that car for the second time this race. And you can see pit lane, it's not been too busy this lap. Not many drivers are able to extend it this distance into the race. Team Redline Red, they are into the pit lane. I was wondering about them because obviously they jumped in earlier for their fast repair after the opening stages of the race, having that little dive into pit lane and getting back on with it, and all things are looking good. They're joined the pit lane by Dream Factory, who are the last one to tick off their pit stop directly behind them. Though not the insanely busy time it was in pit lane the previous lap, where it would have been quite full on, but at the moment all just very, very calm and just ticking off their final pit stops. At the moment, I'd still say, let's be honest, let's be real here, MSI Esports are well in control here at COTA, looking for their win, looking for their ticket to BMW Sim Live, and looking for a decent bit of prize money as well. It's a 6-second gap to Williams, so yeah, they are in control. They re-inherit the race lead. It is now Christian Lamella behind the wheel of the 47 car. Here is Redline Blue with the PRT car being driven by John Vining close in pursuit. The question I have is, do we see something different from Team Redline Red? Does Enzo Benito choose not to take the tires. No, he's up on the jack, so he will get those.
Everyone's taking tires.
Well, why not try something different, right? If you're here for some fun, you have to bounce back from the incident that you had early doors. Just have some fun, try something different, see what it's like to struggle, be on the struggle bus.
Have you ever had fun on worn tires?
In an Indy car, yes. Maybe
really?
Not here. Well, it can be fun. I'm not saying it's always fun, but sometimes you go four-wheel drifting, and that can be fun in its own right.
I think the traction control and such, and being a GT car might have issues with doing some four-wheel drifting.
Turn the traction control off.
Yeah, of course you would. Yeah, but who knows? I would probably suggest that in this kind of car, I would not recommend if you're going to go on a counter strategy. I'd rather go on to, if the counter strategy was to go onto tyres, everyone else was not going onto tyres, then I'd be like, yeah, I'm definitely going opposite to everyone else because I want to have a bit of fun. But realistically speaking, I wouldn't want to counter and try and just take the tyres to the end, because in this kind of temperature around this kind of circuit, it would be a surprise if they made it. And also they had dropped off a fair amount of pace from the start of the race, around about a second. I think that's Alpha hopping out of the way of BS competition just coming through in the background. But it would just be a very uncomfortable and, to be honest, a very unentertaining end to the race. COTA have lost out a lot of time, by the way, on the pit stop.
Oh, side by side. Is that lap traffic for Arnage competition, or
no,
is
it's
that
Dream Factory?
No, that's Dream Factory, still out there on track. Not sure exactly how. 29. They had an early stop, maybe for the fast repair.
Oh, yeah, they must have ticked it off. Yeah. Around about lap 15, maybe.
Yeah, COTA, I think technically then is not so far off where we'd expect them to be. They'll cycle up into 9th position, about 4 seconds behind. There goes the Dream Factory car. Releases Rodrigo Fluker in the number 6 to inherit, I think it will be 8th position, as the Dream Factory car gets down to pit road speed. Now chasing the Arnage competition BMW in front. We are getting word, Lewis, that maybe I'm not so crazy, from our producer Hugo Luis, who is also one of the founding members of Coanda SimSport, that the purple and orange outfit might have won an endurance race in the World Championship days in the GT3 by only changing one tire. So maybe I'm not as crazy as I was thinking, or you were thinking, I should say.
No, I mean, that's still pretty crazy. I mean, that's just bold. That's a team that just knows what they're doing. I mean, sometimes you've got to take the risk. Something like this, again, it all depends on what you're going for. If it was a tight 5-way fight for the race lead, then yeah, someone's got to do a bold gamble. Whereas, if you're just trying to have a bit of a fun race and enjoy yourself, then maybe the bold gamble's not really worth it. Because like I say, you're not going to enjoy the second half of the race, and that's just how it is. Especially in this kind of format. I've always said this when it comes to these types of races where we have 2 drivers and stuff. I hate the idea of being like, oh yeah, so I'm going to do the second stint of the race. Yeah, that's fine. You'll be on my old tyres though. I'm like, no, thank you. I want to be on my tyres. I don't want your flat-spotted, gross, well-used, firmly degraded tyres. Thank you very much. I want my own fresh set. You're
so expensive. You're such a diva.
I'm a drama queen. That's what it is. That's why I don't get to race very much anymore.
Your team bosses at Sancho just saying, we don't want to foot the bill for your tires anymore.
Yeah, they don't want to foot the bill for anything with me. They're just like, no, we're just going to sit him on the sidelines and do some social posts every now. That is not true. That is not true. Let's race a little bit. Ed, who's my team boss, tries to get me to race every now and then. But
you're trying to make sure that Ed doesn't stop you from doing future commentary stuff.
I'm trying to make sure, yeah, there is that. He is a bit of my agent in that sense, so, that's how I earn my keep. No, obviously, with the way sim racing is these days, if you're going to take part in any of these competitions, you've got to be a high-level driver, of which I'm not. I'd rather just banter around in a touring car league and have a bit of fun rather than this high-pressure, high-level environment. I mean, think of how much practice people are putting in. I even thought about it as like, okay, if this was your job, because I think you were speaking about this yesterday, your job, you put in 40 hours a week practicing, which, it's not unrealistic. That's pretty standard. If it's your job, to go sim racing, to do this kind of stuff, and you can earn the money from doing it with prize money and such to counter that and make it so. 40 hours a week. I was like, imagine waking up on Monday morning and doing 8 hours of sim racing. I'm just like, holy cow. I don't think I could. I love sim racing. I don't think I could do that.
I think it loses its appeal pretty quickly. I mean,
it becomes a job.
Well, it's not just that, right? You're not just doing your own preparation at that point. For example, from the Coanda guys, even the Apex guys, you know, they're doing data packs for all of the guys who are trying to improve. Like you and me, we want setups, we want data to compare ourselves against. And imagine, who was it? I'm gonna have to go and look on Discord now and figure out who was saying this. But was it Josh Thompson? I think it was Josh Thompson. He was saying this morning, I just don't want to drive. I don't want to do data packs for the Roval. Now, I don't know which Roval he's talking about, but can you imagine you're a GT3 driver and you suddenly see there's this awful New Hampshire Roval and you suddenly have to do setups for it. You have to do data packs for it. It's not a choice. It's your job now.
It's like I say, it's where you're getting. I mean, I've spoken a few times recently about burnout and such, because we're at this point in sim racing where you're racing basically every week, and you're quite right where by basically every week I mean basically pretty much every day, to be honest. And then on your days off, then you're doing data packs and stuff like you say for everyone, so that you know, earning a bit of money on the side, etc., etc. It's a relentless task. You know, doing your odd bit of coaching. I mean, hey, to be honest, for some teams, you've got, you know, you're in a big team and they're racing in a car that you've raced in before, so you're the go-to guy on why does the car do this and how do I get the car to do that, and what should I do on pit lane. And so you've got to sit down for 40 minutes, an hour explaining that to this. You're not even in that championship. It's, you know, it's just, you're just there to help as part of the team. And, you know, it's that team spirit stuff. It's just relentless. And for something which doesn't have an off-season, I wonder where we're going to see this go in esports terms with sim racing, as to see if we're actually going to see drivers more focus very specifically towards they will only do this one series, they'll only do that one series, and they'll probably more roll back the commitments across the world of sim racing. Because I do get the vibe sometimes that for some of the drivers it's actually fairly unsustainable. It's quite unhealthy to be in the sim that much.
Well, and that's why now I think an increasing number of these guys are full-time in sim racing, as I think now the likes of Jamie Fluke, for example, we were talking with him on our RaceSpotTV podcast last year, and he was saying that potentially he would be making that step into full-time working in sim racing. Here comes the move from Stefan Ash for Vendaval Sim Racing down the inside. German Sim Racing kind of barged out of the way. Very nice move through turn 12. These guys will continue to fight. They're 7 seconds adrift from Kova, who are really now closing on the group of cars in front. So Tupas Tatala has taken over from the job that Valtteri Alander was doing. That 707 still potentially as a top 5 finish. Might be a bit tough to get into that prize money, because he's now about 13 seconds off from the red line and PRT machines.
It's a tall order to get to red line blue, to third spot. To get onto the podium is a bit too much, I kind of feel, for Thomas Tatler, but it would be easier if they were all in one train. But the problem is they're not. If you look at them, they're all kind of spread out, with the exception of Redline and PRT Ronin Sinsport at the front of this train. Everyone's kind of set, you know, spread out. You've got 4 seconds, you've got a couple of seconds, you've got 3 seconds, you've got a second, and then you've got Kova. And that you don't really want. You want to get to them when they're in a train, because you can pick them off going through the train. At this point, it's great. You get to pick them off one by one, but you're not having them slowing themselves down, which can become a bit of a problem. And so I kind of get the vibe they've got to change what they're aiming for. I think, you know, like I say, the main thing they have been aiming for is a bit of fun. They started in 26th spot, they've moved up now into 9th. I think they've had their fun. They've put on a bit of an entertaining show for us, so, you know, why not?
And just more experience and seat time with the GT3. Maybe an opportunity for Valtteri Alander to build up his own confidence, right, as well, because we talked about his open wheel exploits. Maybe a future run with someone like Antti Ahola for the next couple of races here in the regular season of the Sim GT Cup, because Tatala and his teammate Pekka Toivonen, one of the greatest beards in all of sim racing have got their tickets to Sim Live. It would be good to see maybe a second COTA team. If things run as they did last year for Sim Live, it's not going to be 2 COTA teams, it's going to be 4 COTA drivers. It was individual drivers competing by themselves. You qualify though as a team. Right now, I mean, it was the Redline and Coanda showcase in Season 1, Lewis. It is great that at least things are being mixed up here and we're getting an influx of the other teams, because we love Redline and Coanda. That's not what we're trying to say, Dom Duhan and Philip Stam. We love you guys, but we just want to see other names and faces as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm all for, because I like the drama, to be perfectly honest. I like the rivalry that we have between Coanda and Redline. It's a great storyline to follow through sim racing as a whole, to find where they've been racing, how hard they've been racing, how much they've been racing, just basically across the board. And they do race basically everywhere these days, and it's a great storyline to follow. But like I say, we like seeing the likes of COTA thrown to it. Now with the likes of MSI Esports likely in a position to transfer as well, I mean, we're starting to get a bit more of a colourful. It's not just you know, black, red, blue, and then a white, purple, and orange. Yeah. We are starting to get some additions to that, and I think we're going to see a pretty feisty fight. But the thing is, like I say, whilst you're fighting so hard in a very specific rivalry, you've got your eyes for your main rivals. You know, the team that the likes of COTA, the likes of MSI, they're great examples of teams that they'll just pick you off bit by bit, and if you're going to play around, you know, all silly with each other, they will be there to pounce.
Getting word from Antiohola in our BMW Esports chat that he won't be racing until Monza, so gives Valtteri Alander one more race up and down the mountain at the end of August to get his own confidence up in this car. And I mean, confidence in Bathurst, definitely something you need. So maybe we'll see the pairing of Ahola and Alander come the final race of this regular season at the end of October. Maybe we'll get another of those COTA entries punched into Sim Live. Gap out front, Christian Lamela has just picked up where Alejandro Sanchez had left off, and now almost 9 full seconds clear of Dominic Stabe. A further 8 seconds back to this battle we're watching with Chris Lullum and John Vining. And then Ritomo Miyata has been unable to really close the gap. He's now 4 seconds adrift from these cars in front. So the Japanese driver well and truly being left to contend by himself, and might even be being chased down by the R8G Junior of Florian Lebrec. Oh God, I'm awful with names sometimes, especially when it's the first time I've ever seen them. Ricardo Ferreira for Arnage Competition 7th, Ronan Simsport, Rodrigo Fluker in 8th, and then Kova and Tattel at 9th, with the Vendaval Sim Racing orange car and Stefan Ash that we saw making that dive on the German Sim Racing car, completing our top 10 positions. We started with 31 cars. We are down to just 24 of them out there and running of the remaining contenders. Only 18 on the leading lap, so it does give you an indication, Lewis, that lap traffic has been an issue. And if lap traffic is like this at Bathurst, it's going to, I mean, the only word for it is bloodbath.
I want to take part now. I want to get myself. I'd love me a bit of Bathurst. I mean, what a fantastic racetrack. Of course, you know, we love seeing these calendars where we get to go to some of the proper classic tracks of the motorsport world. Now, whilst Imola and COTA are perfectly fine venues, they don't get my blood pumping like Bathurst, and I don't care what Hugo Luis has just put in our little commentator's chat saying. I can't even read that out. It makes me feel horrible. It makes me feel horrible. Bathurst is a proper classic track, rising up over the top. It's not the most interesting to watch because it's you're battling yourself. You as a driver, you're not necessarily battling everyone else. You're battling the track, and that's such an enthralling experience.
I'll tell you what, though, it is not the most interesting to watch in a GT3 fight. Oh, side by side, talking of fights, it's Vendaval and German Sim Racing. They are really getting well acquainted with one another. Are they being lent on? Nope, there's plenty of room between the two of them, and Vendaval should hang on because inside really gives you the optimal line here. Bathurst is not the most fun to watch in a GT3 car. I will agree that. The Bathurst 12 is usually more interesting because of the strategies and stuff that gets thrown into the mix. However, you cannot watch something like the Bathurst 1000 and not be entertained. I mean, that is just a fantastic race up and down the mountain, and those behemoth V8 supercars. There is nothing more enjoyable in supercars action than Bathurst, at least for me.
Do you know what the best thing that races at Bathurst there is?
You're going to tell me, I hope.
I most certainly am. Formula Ford. It's hilarious. It's got obviously slipstream and such, and how long the straights are. And if you've ever watched it, there's 40 different cars, all with completely different specs. It's ridiculous.
I think we need a RaceSpotTV. We were talking about commentator races yesterday, but we need a Formula V race at Bathurst with a mandatory jump. Of course, you have to take the jump every single lap.
Oh, we are not going to last very long.
well, that's why you have infinite fast repairs and stuff.
I mean, like I say, Bathurst, like like I say, as a visual perspective, it's probably not the greatest racetrack that's ever been. But when it comes to what you actually do as a driver, it really is. Let's see what happens, though. Speaking of racing, John Vining now right on the rear end of Chris Lulham, and it's been fairly impressive to be able to keep up. And is there going to be a move sat there on the stick? Surely that's intent. Did not want to pass. Yeah, that's the vibe that I'm getting there.
I think he's waiting. 40 minutes still to go. There is plenty of time. And really, I mean, Lulham just covered him off so slightly, and Vining was content to just sit there. Kobe Williams has jumped out of the car and into our YouTube chat. Oh yes, Hyundai excels at Bathurst. That also sounds like an absolute blast to watch. I'll be completely honest there. We've seen, who is it? Dylan Burse, who's a driver for Vendaval, if I'm remembering correctly. He's the one who does race there. What's happened here? This is the second Ronin car being attacked by Tuomas Tatila. Got confused for a moment there because, of course, Ronin. Lights flashing from the Finnish driver as he's trying to just urge Rodrigo Fluker to get out of the way, but I don't think Fluker is going to accommodate him. Hyundai excels. I think that would be a pretty fun kind of spectacle at Bathurst.
Anything low power, big slipstream.
Exactly.
It races so well because the straights are so long.
It's probably going to be more interesting heading to Monza at the end of October. As up the hill, here comes the move from the 707. Fluker, I don't think is going to fight it. Yeah, he's just going to let Tatila go through. Now, a couple of seconds down the road to the pink BMW Arnage. Let's see how he can go. I think Monza is going to be interesting, Lewis. We saw yesterday, you put the best sim racers out on track, they can get through without relative carnage. Relative carnage.
Yeah, no, nice way of putting it. Obviously, we did see some instance yesterday in the Virtual Racing School Sports Car Open Sprint Masters, and of course in the Sprint Challenge the day before. But Monza is one of those racetracks. It is a fantastic racetrack when it comes to a venue for racing, courtesy of the slipstream and such. The thing is, around there, I think we are going to see big trades, not necessarily because just because of the slipstream, but it's just going to be because people are going to be waiting for the right time, as we see Williams Sports here just picking up a bit of lap traffic there from Volante. They've not had a particularly great day, it must be said. A lap down. Quite a lot of cars a lap down. I think it's now just 18 cars on the lead lap here, which is, to be honest, less than I would have thought.
Yeah, yes and no. I think there's a quite wide disparity in terms of driver strength here. Yes, you've got your very, very strong drivers, the likes of even Sindre Setsos, who is now back behind the wheel of the Was Cooking Racing Adventures car. Still on the leading lap, but a minute 35 off the pace. You do have some lower I rating. I mean, we don't like to highlight it. There was someone with 232 iRacing in this race. So just a reminder, these are public races. Anyone can jump in and compete. So really does mean that things get mixed up in terms of the field and whatnot, especially when it's just one big grid. And let's be honest, Bathurst might be interesting with the lap traffic. Going to be very interesting how patient drivers can be as they get stuck up behind the various contenders. Down the hill, here comes the Ronin SimSport car, still being very, very patient behind the red line blue machine. There you see the Zebra just at the back of the shot. Now 4 seconds adrift from these cars with 36 minutes left to go. Monza's going to be fun. Can't wait to see Hockenheim as well. The entry into that first corner at Hockenheim, it invites you to go 3-4 wide. The reality is that the exit of the corner and indeed the apex of the corner is really only sufficient for, what, two cars at the most to really fight side by side?
yeah, as realistic as a one-line corner. Anything other than that. The problem is if you go side by side through it, the car that's behind that's taken the racing line, they will get you by the run down into the second corner. It's just how it goes. Obviously, momentum and such being racetracks and whatever. Again, the differing venues on the calendar, of course, when you look at all of these venues, when you compare Imola, Monza, Bathurst, COTA and Hockenheim, they're all very, very different tracks, and that's you know what we like seeing. Whilst obviously a lot of them are Grand Prix venues, they're more built for they're ready for Formula One cars. I say that. Realistically speaking, they're all of them are raced in a multitude of different race cars, from touring cars to bikes to GTs to open wheelers to everything, and that's kind of where they get their own overtaking opportunities in different places, and that's where it becomes a bit interesting. It's not just, you can't just copy and paste your move from the last round and be like, well, I was able to dive it down the inside down into turn 12 at COTA, so I'll just do the same thing into this corner at this track. It does not work like that, not at all. Back on board with German sim racing by ACV, who are on the rear end, continuingly on the rear end of Vendaval, just on the edge of the top 10. I don't know how much they have to worry about red line behind. Enzo Benito only closed a couple of tenths in the previous lap, so I think they are genuinely in their own little planet here.
Unless they want to fight side by side, I think you're right. They're probably okay for the remaining portion of this race. I'm just thinking as well, Lewis, now I'm looking forward to future years of BMW virtual motorsport competition. iRacing, maybe talk to BMW, please. Let's get that LMDH onto the service as soon as possible.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. That's going to be such an exciting time as BMW returns to prototype level competition in not just American sports car racing, but hopefully at Le Mans as well. Such an interesting dynamic you have here of the ACO going one direction with LMH, then IMSA going in a slightly different direction with budgets maybe slightly more in mind. With LMDH, they will be let loose together. Balance of performance will work to try and equalize the two cars out. And I must say, it's an interesting idea.
Yeah. No, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm feeling. I want to see this, the mergers. I like seeing this thing in sim racing and motorsport as well. Just seeing these mergers of cultures. It's why it's so exciting when you have, say for example, I mean you brought up the example of IndyCar this season with Romain Grosjean, of course, taking part. So yeah, there's a bit of lap traffic just bouncing out of the way, going for a bit of a slide. Not sure which one that was. Just getting out of it, being Catalyst Racing, who are down in 25th. They're one of the early ones to go a lap down. I think one of the earlier pitters as well was Catalyst Racing. But yeah, I mean, you say, yeah, of course, that was obviously Helen Castnever's back, fantastic. For me, though, the main one that I've been focusing on was Scott McLaughlin moving over from Supercars,
yes.
Three-time series champion. Not had the greatest season, but has been learning it bit by bit. Obviously, a wildly different culture. But again, it's that. That's why I say it's the merger of Penske went over to Supercars. They had this program. They won the championship. They brought Scott McLaughlin over, and it's seeing how that all works. And what a fantastic weekend it is there as well with the Brickyards, where they're racing NASCAR and IndyCar on the same weekend again with fans and stuff. It
was very entertaining yesterday. You had the IndyCar race wrap up, and then chaos at the opening lap of the Xfinity race. The Cup guys will go racing in just a couple of hours later. Yeah, I'll be watching that as well. It's a great weekend that you have both IndyCar and the NASCAR guys coming together. And if BMW is watching, I'm just saying, hello, come to IndyCar as well. We'd love to have you. And open another pathway for the likes of some of the F1 young drivers to come on over, the likes of Christian Lundgaard having a very impressive debut weekend. Romain Grosjean has said, by the way, he has been very impressed by Scott McLaughlin. That's a very interesting transition to make, right? Going from a V8 supercar to an open wheel downforce machine. And then, yes, he's familiar with street tracks, but the venues that the IndyCar guys visit, very, very different. So much bumpier, I think, in certain places than even the supercar guys have. McLaughlin got a podium on his debut in oval racing at the Texas Motor Speedway, not necessarily too far from where we are here today. So I'm sure he's been enjoying his American adventures, as I'm sure everyone is. Even rumors that someone like, not just Lundgaard, might be coming over to, of course, BMW partners, Team RLL, but potentially even someone like the always popular Nico Hülkenberg. So definitely opens some eyes, I think, the way that Grosjean has adapted to his first year of competition. And maybe we'll see some more European talents coming over to the US ranks and being very, very quick. Willie P yesterday took the victory in that NTT IndyCar Series race. Romain Grosjean, his second place finish, both of them coming at the Brickyard. Across the line, 30 minutes still to go. It is MSI Esports in control. 12 seconds now clear from the rest of the field. It has been a dominant performance, still side by side between Vendaval and German Sim Racing. This is through the final corner, the climb up the hill, the braking zone of turn 1. Who will have it? I think it's a better run from Vendaval, but German Sim Racing, the preferred line on the inside.
Yeah, it's pretty good. You've got Catalyst Racing behind them. That's the bit of lap traffic they've already passed. GSR to the inside, hook it up, and still side by side. If you can remain on the outside there, the drive down the hill will be slightly better. You'll be alongside just heading through the second corner, but it is GSR that'll be out in front. They've continued to switch quite a lot. I think we should focus on this for the next half an hour, based on the fact that they've been doing this for about an hour now, of just constantly switching. Went through the pit stop sequence, back to constantly switching, the hard racing between them. It's fantastic to see. Like I say, the thing as well, they're not just switching up in the same corner, they're switching it up all over the racetrack, which is good for experience, because you're not just learning how to dive it down into one corner, you're figuring out different overtaking opportunities into every single corner, which will pay dividends on other racetracks as well in this car.
Yeah, very much so, and I agree with you. Let's focus on this now for the remaining 30 minutes of action. Unless someone in the YouTube chat wants to send word over to John Vining in that PRT Ronin SimSport car to make things a bit more exciting in that battle
Do
for
something, yeah.
yeah, well, the battle for third and the what's it called? Fight for prize money, because there is something on the line there. It's not just trips to Hockenheim and our season finale. It is $300 per driver, so $600 in total for the team, and I'm sure John Vining and his teammate would appreciate just a little bit of that prize money. They are, what, 7 seconds behind the Williams car in front. They are 5 seconds clear, 4 seconds clear of Ritomo Miata in the big red Zebra in fifth position, I should say. So make things interesting for us. Just give us something to talk about, and we will happily focus on you. RAG trying to close that gap, by the way, to the BS car for that final invitation to the trip to Hockenheim. I'm not sure they're gonna get things done. Vendaval, though, deep under the brakes as they come through the final corner. These guys are putting on a show. And this is what iRacing is all about. I'm gonna quote Jimmy Broadbent real. Yes, the cars aren't real, but the racing is real, the camaraderie is real, and it's such a fun time we have here in iRacing.
Yeah, always is. Will say, by the way, obviously, whilst PRT Ronin SimSport aren't going for that move, and we would love to see them go for it, but yeah, they've already got their invitation to the final of this season at Hockenheim after finishing 5th place last round out. So they're not playing for anything except for prize money. So, you know, chop chop, get on with it. But they're just waiting at the moment. They're waiting for the right opportunity. I mean, we've spoken a little bit over the last couple of days of people attacking too soon when it comes to making their moves for whatever position they're battling for, and so just waiting for the correct time. Kova, the fastest in that top lot, and they are kind of charging up to them. Kova's last lap time was a 2:05.3. Arnage ahead, RAG Esports, BS Competition, and PRT Ronin SimSport and Team Redline Blue, all running in the mid to higher 2:05. So they are closing down, 8 tenths sort of on some, 6, 7 on others. They are gaining time. They are gaining sort of track position in a sense. They will be going for some of those moves quite soon.
18 positions on the day for the 707. That is incredible. That is just what sometimes happens here in terms of having fun. You start at the back, you get some experience with the car, you get some experience at wheel-to-wheel carving through the field. Definitely not saying Olander or Tatala necessarily needs that experience, but always good to get a little bit of practice that you can never simulate when it comes to running with your teammates. There's just no replication, no way to substitute running on track in the pressure cooker of a race situation, for running with your teammates and just, you know, getting some fun under your belt. I tell you what, Lewis, you probably know about this just like I do. It's a lot of fun when you run with your teammates. You just go out there and have a little bit of fun, but it's never like actually being there on track and fighting with people that you don't know are going to leave you enough space.
It's for two reasons. Yeah, number one, well, it's not for two, it's actually for a lot more than just two, so, you know, I won't do it that little justice, but it's for reasons like I say, you don't know who you're racing with when you're coming across them. Yes, you might have seen that name somewhere else in sim racing, you might have seen their name here, there, or everywhere, but you've not really raced with this specific person and this specific car, and so you need to learn what they're like, whereas with your team, you always kind of, you know who you're racing against. Also, against your team, you'll most likely be doing it in, say for example, like a practice session or something, where if there is car contact or whatever, you know, fair enough. You know, just escape and have another go. Also, you're not playing for anything. You're just playing for the racing. You're not playing for position. It's not as if your hands are getting sweaty, as if you're a bit of contact there as well. You're not sweaty hands. You're not playing for fifth, for third, for the lead, for whatever. You're just racing for whatever in a session like that against your team. So it's not the same kind of thing. If you were to switch that up and race those two teammates in an actual race and then give them third and fourth spot and say, there you go, race after that, completely different how they'll race against each other, just because you change the level of risk that you take, because you don't want to throw away those kinds of positions. You don't want to throw anything down the road. You don't want to be the guy that made the mistake, especially when you're racing not only for yourself and not only for your team, you're also racing for your teammate that is also in the same car as you. It's your results, both of you.
Okay, so I tell you what, since the only battle that we're really having right now in terms of actual wheel-to-wheel is between these two guys, we'll focus on this, but let's look forward. Let's talk about Sim Live, and let's have some fun. Let's speculate here. So we've already said we want to get... Well, we want to get all of the different cars into the mix. We want GT3, we want GT4, we want GTE. Where are we going to go in terms of tracks, though? Because I think that is a different situation. Of course, we were at Silverstone last year. Are we going to go back to Silverstone? Are we going to go to a new track, maybe? The Hungaroring is supposedly going to be out by then. Are we going to maybe the Red Bull Ring? Or do we go to Germany? Because, of course, Munich, sorry, not Munich, man, my brain is frazzled, I guess, from some of this stuff. Hockenheim and Nürburgring, are we going to go there and have some fun?
It would kind of make sense to visit some German tracks. I mean, if you're going to race, if in our hypothetical scenario of racing 3 different cars, it would be good to race on 3 different tracks. I do get the vibe. So, you know, yeah, well, why not spice it up in that sense? Go to visit some different venues or even different layouts of the same track. I mean, obviously, yeah, that's what's been happening. Remember Formula E last year? They don't get again the same thing this year, but I have no idea what's happened, so I'm going to ignore that for now. Where you know, they raced on the Berlin Tempelhof. They raced it one way, then they raced it in reverse, and they raced a different layout in addition. And was actually having a very interesting chat on that with some of the guys about how they were going about those changes and such, but that's a topic for a very different day, and the specifications they had to hit. But it would be good to like say, if you're going to race at the Nürburgring or say something like that, for example, race in a couple of the different layouts. Hey, do one race where you're doing the Grand Prix, do one race where you're doing the Sprint Strecker, and have your grand finale running around the Nordschleife for a couple of laps.
You know I'm a Nordschleife guy.
I know you do. You've
instantly got my attention there. I'm all for that. I like that idea. Well, maybe do it the other way, though. Maybe start at the Nordschleife, or do the first one at the GP, then the Nordschleife, and then the Sprint Strecker.
I like the Nordschleife being the grand finale, though.
But it's a tough challenge. Here we go, though. Kova side by side with Arnage Competition. I saw Jimmy Antunes from the Arnage team jumping in the chat. He won't be thrilled to see them demoted down into 8th position. The charge continues. Only 2 seconds now further for Kova to close on the RHE car in front. Would not be surprised if Tattler gets that job done. The top 5 is probably out of the equation, though, with another 4 seconds or so down the road to the Zebra. I see what you mean about the Nordschleife being the finale, but I'm also of the opinion we want racing, especially in that final race where the prize money will likely be on the line. And you can go side by side on the Nordschleife, but it's risky. So let's stick it safe. Let's go with the Sprint Strecker. one of the shortest layouts you have on the iRacing service in terms of proper FIA, you know, grade 1 facilities. What if we do something different though? What if we came here? You have about 7 different layouts you can go here.
I think we need to go to a random track. I think we need to go to... We need not kill on the service. They said they were doing it.
We need it soon. What we should do, what we should actually do is randomly generate a track.
Ooh, I mean, see, the thing is, right, what I want with this is the whole kind of thing of, like, I've said this before with sim racing as a whole, is I like the idea, I mean, this is where randomly generating a track in that sense of to which one you're going to go to is such a great thing to do, because I like the idea of no practice.
Yep.
You can't practice. You've got a 10, 15-minute practice window, then you're into quali, then you're into the race. And especially when you have it, if obviously in this they'd be driving in their own car, but especially in like endurance racing and stuff, or even something like this, where you've got 2 drivers. And you can't just generate a random new car. You've got to drive the same car in the same session. So in that sense, you have 15 minutes. And you've both got. You only really have like 7 minutes to learn the track and get to go. Love that stuff, and that's where, like, randomly generating a track, I'd be all over that.
I'm a fan, stuff. And not just the track, the layout as well.
Yeah,
I like the idea. I really do.
We're getting there. We're going way off topic here, but yeah, let's just make our own thing and we're fine.
We need consultant fees, I think, if BMW was watching. We are ready. We are ready to help you make this event just as great as it was last year, and even better, because of course that's what we want from continued involvement from the BMW team. Lap traffic in front of the German sim racing and Vendeval cars as they come across the line and in towards turn number 1. German sim racing takes a look to the inside, but nothing doing, at least for now. I believe that's one of the Calioth Racing cars. Indeed, yes, it is. It is the Hong Kong machine. Derek Lee behind the wheel. Mirrors filled with the headlights flashing. Not always what you want to see, but we get the opportunity to maybe just pull aside after they climb up the hill on the exit of this S's section. You know what I would do? As there he is, going to force the move even earlier. You know what we could do, Lewis, is instead of going to a random track, you were saying reverse things around. Let's do a time trial for part of the fun. Let's go to Mount Washington.
I was going to say up the hill climb, yeah.
Up and down the hill, let's go.
Well, why not? Like you say, yeah, the sky's the limit. I mean, if you were going to do it in different cars, then you've got your opportunity to do 3 different types of racing or something in that sense. So, you know, why not? I mean, like I say, I'm all about, like, the merger, like seeing different things. I want to see a complete driver. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm always interested, but I'm less interested as to who's the greatest driver at, you know, this type of racing. I want to see who's the greatest driver overall. I want to see who's the best here. I want to see who's the best there. I want to see who's the best everywhere.
I mean, we know who the best is, at least right now. I mean, you said.
Yeah, no, exactly. Realistically, it's Josh. The thing is that when you've got someone like that, you know, not to go too far away, but you see this in football and such, when you've got your key player like for France and the Euros, we're going way off topic, sorry, like Kylian Mbappe, and having someone like that on the grid, all of the focus, all of the attention goes straight to that. Straight to that player, straight to that driver, so go straight to Kylian Mbappe in the Euros, because they also always have 2 defenders, something focused on keeping him at bay. Now, it would be the same thing with Josh Rogers, that if you had a format like that, you know that everyone's eyes are just on Josh. Like, how do I beat Josh? How do I do that? How do I do that? But then it opens the door for someone else to come through, because they're not being marked, they're not being watched, they're allowed to fly under the radar. They're essentially doing what COTA and MSI Esports have done in the first 2 rounds. They've approached it from a way where they've moved the favourites to one side and they blasted them away from them. Yeah,
no, and well, with 17 minutes left to go, I'm now really starting just to enjoy. I'm enjoying the chat that we're having, but I'm also now starting to think about what future years holds for this. I mean, of course, we have had multiple years of this 2-hour sprint. Maybe we can change the format up a little bit here, Lewis. I mean, there's so many different things that we can suggest. And again, BMW, if you want any suggestions, we are always at your disposal. As just behind these cars, I think I saw the red line car is closing and closing fast. Enzo Benito has that gap down, just 2.7 seconds.
Yeah, it's like I say, it's closing down bit by bit, but we're at the latter stages of the day where some can sort of balance their way back out at this point, where tyres are going to be coming into it, where it's been so hot and such on the circuit, where if you've pushed hard to close up, you're going to be losing some of that tyre grip in the latter stages. Why I'm kind of watching COTA and watching their gap. So they've got another second until they've caught RHG Sports Junior, and then it's 4.5. I think they can get RHG Sports Junior. I don't actually think they'll be able to catch BS Competition, not just because of their pace, because of their tyres. I think that, you know, that by this point they'll have burnt them out, and so that's the balance. It's not just about going fast over 1 or 2 laps, it's about going fast over the entire stint. And that is exceptionally hard. And it's why quite a lot of these drivers do a lot of endurance racing, because it's one of the things you really have to learn in endurance racing is driving within yourself and hitting a number every single lap time.
Tires and fuel, that's definitely the name of the game in endurance racing. COTA then are, what, about 7/10 behind the RHG4 cars, so yeah, as they work their way through the S's, they are going to get on the back of that car, draft up and see if Tesla can get the move done. Down the hill, German Sim Racing still leads the Vendaval car. I do like the Vendaval liveries. It's just a shame that we don't see them here today.
It's just white.
Yeah, well, a white livery, it's beautiful.
Rebranding, that's what it is.
It could be a work. What I've always wanted is when a team's going through a rebranding, which sometimes does happen. Like, for example, we've seen Coanda kind of not fully stepping away from the purple and orange, but kind of more embracing the black and red, of course, of their sponsor, Virtual Racing School. But when you do that, let's just have some fun liveries. We saw the Was Cooking Racing Machine. Let's have some fun with that. You can have a work in progress, Bob the Builder kind of theme going on as you know you rebrand and rejig things. Oh, gap, by the way, has opened up between PRT Ronin and Team Redline Blue. So that gap, I think, is done and dusted, at least for the time being. The only battles are this one. You can see Enzo Benito lurking in the rearview mirror, and COTA continuing to close in front of these guys. So there will be some on-track action in the closing stages, and what has been a rather slow race, I would say, Lewis. But of course, sometimes that's just what racing is here in a 2-hour race.
Yeah, it's like 2 hours is a very long time. It's just how it goes in some of those cases. We'll say with Vining on the back of Lullen, when he was kind of sat there waiting for one of those moves a bit earlier, I was a little bit concerned that maybe not going for it, you were going to get into a little bit of trouble, just based on the fact that at some point Chris Lullen's going to light the afterburner and clear off, and that's kind of what's happened. Vining can still come back into this though, so not necessarily sorted there for the final bit on the podium and the final points paying position. So, Tattler, there we go. T1 made the move on the RHG Sports Junior team, so has made that one stick. Now 4.2 seconds to Miata ahead. Also, yeah, quite rightly as you're pointing out, Benito is closing in on the top 10 as we were watching that battle between Vendaval and GSR. It was looking like that Team Redline car was getting closer. Oh. This is what we've seen a lot throughout the day, though, is that once COTA or Redline, and this massive charge up the field, once they get to the back of someone, everyone's just like, well, yeah, you've caught me, see ya. I let him through him, so where's the racing?
Well, that was a proper lick of the stamp as well. It was not like he was alongside into the braking zone. He well and truly went full send, and probably a good job that the RHG car of Lebrage just stepped aside and said, you know what, we're already out of those top 5s. Let's not get together. Let's get to the end of this race. Producer Hugo Luis has pointed out that, yes, there was actually a team that went through that rebranding process that I was mentioning. It was Team 77 as a number of the Racecraft esports drivers left the team. We saw a fully black car kind of racing around in some of the top endurance races here on the iRacing service. So it is something that you sometimes see. Of course, always interesting just to note how the dynamic of the iRacing scene changes in what has been a roller coaster of the last year or so, I'd say. Increasing eyes coming onto our little burgeoning esports here, increasing real driver involvement, so many different factors that have been playing their part, and really it's great that we have continued support from the likes of BMW. Gap between Benito and the cars in front now down under 2 seconds, so he's continuing to charge. There is significant damage to his car though, so
yeah.
They took, oh, you know why? Because they took the fast. They would have taken the fast repair, and then they got involved in a number of other beats and bumping and banging kind of moments, and so that explains why the left side is very crumbled in as compared to what you'd expect from a factory fresh M4. But I guess at least they don't have to pay repair bills, and they don't have to buy a brand new M4 GT3.
Yeah, I mean, it's always kind of one of those things in some ways you can just hit the escape button. But I do like seeing, obviously, with this, less so we're running the older damage model just on this because it's not been implemented on the GT3s. Yeah, but I do like seeing the new damage model and seeing like a car crumple. Kind of feels right, doesn't it? When you see the cars crumple, see the bonnets flying up and such on the new damage model. Seeing the IndyCar, I mean, we were having a good bit of fun with that in the ISOWC, watching various parts flinging off of cars and such. Always kind of one of those things when if you watch an onboard now riding through a crash, it's almost like you can see it happening. That crash at Road America in the penultimate round of the ISOWC running through turn 1, we did the onboard. I was like watching it being like, that looks almost spot on.
And it's not just that, the new damage model, it's the smoke. You have a new smoke right now that, I'm not saying before the smoke wasn't great, but you could still peer through the smoke as cars spun around. Now it's thick. There is no, you can't see. You are stuck with nowhere to go, and so it's just those extra elements. It's not adding, the physical danger by any stretch of the imagination, but we're just adding those elements that make it that much tougher to keep the foot in it and to keep going, because ultimately these guys know to finish first you must finish, and so ultimately adding those elements really does just change the equation and the risk versus reward that you have here. I must say, there's is that a logo? Yeah, that is Whataburger on the outside of that turn number 19. I'm starting to get hungry, and it's only 8:30 in the morning for me.
I was going to say, I'm starving now. Now you're starting to talk about that. You're getting me in trouble as well. Love a good burger right now. No, we're not getting onto that topic. There's been, do you know what I'm going to speak about? When we're talking of the M4, one of the most contentious topics with the M4 is the front end, isn't it? Right, is that nose. Will say, I like what GSR have done here, because they've almost like tried to take the attention to make it look like that you've got the lower opening to be much wider. It's almost like, oh, there you go, that looks all right. But no, it's just a trick of the livery, which some people have had to try and do. I like the attempt.
Well, I'll say this, and I'm careful because I know who's signing our checks for this, but
I've got used to it.
I actually like how it looks on a GT3 now. I think the way the front end is a little bit squarer looks quite good. I have to be honest, I had an M4, probably not an M4, it was a 4 Series in my rear view mirrors a couple of days ago. And once you add the front license plate to the car, I'm still not a fan. I'm still not a huge fan. I do think in the M4 it looks better. Then you take the German sim racing car, it looks even better, but it's a grill. That's what I can say.
It's like I say, I'm not an enormous fan of it, but it's grown on me that I've got to the point where I'm just like, same thing as when Halos and such were introduced in Formula 1. So yeah, I go used to it now. It's fine. It's there. It is what it is. And I've always said this about the M4. If I put a hand just in the middle of the car so I can't see the grille, I think it's a really pretty car, particularly from the back. I really do like it. It's just, it is what it is. Although one thing that I think we both agree on, who cares about the looks? The way it drives, really quite nice, especially at the circuit that we're visiting next, which did have a good go in it. Doing the first 12 hour earlier in the year. Really nice to drive over the top. Really predictable and smooth and comfortable and good.
I didn't drive it at Bathurst. I've only had, because I was too busy commentating on about 8 hours of that race. Still haunts me sometimes when I think about the lack of sleep I incur from these endurance races. But I drove it around the Nordschleife for the Nürburgring 24-hour race and really enjoyed it there, where even though I got into it with significant damage, because of course, I got in with 12 hours done and my teammates had unfortunately had a few excursions into the wall. Still very stable, still a very nice platform on which you can try and wring the neck of the car and really just try and go as fast as you can. I said it last time, I think this is going to be a car that customers really do enjoy racing, and it's going to be, with especially GT3 continuing to just take off in terms of global motorsports. I mean, now talk that potentially we'll see GT3s at Le Mans in maybe 2023 or even a couple of years after that. It's a car where I do think customers will enjoy, especially your amateur drivers who fundamentally who fundamentally fund. I see what I did there. They're the ones, yeah, they're the ones who pay the bills, and ultimately, you know, the ones whose opinions are the most important. Yeah, I agree with you. I think ultimately the way it looks is second to the way it drives, and yeah, it is a very fun and very stable car. Did have a bit of an unfortunate race debut when it went to the Nürburgring for one of those NLS races, and was it a crash during qualifying? I think it was. I forget who was behind the wheel, but I think there was a small incident for the junior team that was running it. So not the most auspicious of starts, but here comes Enzo Benito, lights flashing. He gets on through on Vendaval. Now 1.5 seconds behind that German sim racing car, and in that quest for a top 10. Turned around on lap number 1. It would be a good bounce back from Max Benecke and Enzo Benito to fight their way back into that position.
Yeah, I mean, it got by so quickly. I thought it was lap traffic, but obviously Vendaval just hopping out of the way there once again, and you'd kind of suspect there would have been a bit of a harder fight there, but no, just getting out of the way, maybe eyeing up the opportunity for Benito to go for something on GSR and then open the door to go through, which is always a bit of a tactic and such, and one of those things of racing. Just going to talk about it again, MSI Esports and domination today. 13 seconds up the road from the entire grid. That is very, very impressive. Williams seeming like they're struggling a little bit at the moment, because I'm pretty sure that gap to Chris Lullen's come down.
It has. It's now only about 4 seconds. At one point it was up at 7 or 8, so not sure if maybe just getting the foot off the throttle very slightly and not pushing as hard, given that Lamela has been impervious since he got into the car, and maybe Stabe realizing better to just hold on and get the $600 in his pocket and his teammate Sami Matty Trogan's pocket. It will be at the line this time around, if I'm doing the math correctly, 2 laps. Yeah, it will be 2 laps to go, because it will be, it's a long old lap here, 2 minutes and 5 second lap times. Last time around it was a 2:05.736 for Christian Lamela in that beautiful MSI Esports blue machine. What a day, what a stunning drive, first from Sanchez and now from Lamela. And I will say, given how the form book has been in terms of our commentators' picks list, I'm just glad I didn't put the RaceSpotTV commentators' curse down on them.
Yeah, I mean, I feel bad. I mean, I'm aware. I've been quite bad with putting the commentators' curse on quite a few recently. I got it right in the second race at Monza in the Virtual Racing School Sports Car Open Sprint Challenge. Sprint Masters, as you know, I destroyed COTA. Yeah. And I also destroyed the Co-and Mercedes as well, which was pretty tragic. Do apologise. I did see your apology on Twitter as well. You know,
I felt bad, man. 5 thousandths of a second between Jamie Fluke and Dade Warren at the Temple of Speed. I mean, neck and neck. I don't know what more Fluke could have done. He played that almost to perfection. It was just Warren was that much more perfect at the end of the day.
I mean, you don't normally see outside runs around Parabolica. We maybe will see some later in the season when we go there for round 4. But it was, for reference, for anyone who didn't see it, it was an outside run around Parabolica at Monza, picking up a position side by side, and yeah, just taking the win. Porsche versus Lamborghini. It was a brilliant race to watch, and it was just tiny margins at the end. It's just how racing goes. Someone has to finish second, unfortunately, and for Apex that day it was them. But you know, you take the highs and the lows, and I'm sure we might see something similar at Monza when we go there.
It'll be a single kind of. It will be a very interesting race, given that it's only M4s. We saw, you know, the different GT3 cars and their strengths at various different points of the track coming to the forefront that time yesterday. This time it will be slightly different. Charge from Tatala has been incredible. 20 positions gained. Redline Blue, they're up 3 positions on the day. The PRT Ronin car up 6 positions. Interesting to note the Dream Factory G-Sim machine that we got word from the team that they're supporting COVID-19, a charity race series, and the part of what they're doing, you know, outside of just this BMW sim program, They're up an incredible 14 spots as well, just picking their way through some of the carnage. For Vendaval, a disappointing day, I'm sure, for them. They're down 6. Sindre Setz also, of course, had his disconnection earlier on. Jack Sedgwick jumped behind the wheel very, very quickly to get that car back out on the leading lap, but they are down 11 positions. Across the line then for the penultimate time, it is your race leader. We are on the final lap of this race, and it's MSI looking to punch their ticket to Sim Live.
Yeah, and what a way to do it. They'll be joining quite a list of drivers. I mean, I do have them written down here. Of course, we know that 2 Team Redline, 4 Coanda, and obviously 1 Kova already going through. The likes of Vecchio, Wallmeyer from the first one, Benito, Beneke, Rogers, De Jong, Boutaloop, Collins. Obviously, you've got Dane Warren, Mac Backham, David William, Pash Gergis all going through. Those 4 going through in the final race of last season in that finale at the Nürburgring. So far this season, we had Pekka Toivonen and Thomas Tattala mark their names to go through for Kova Esports, and now seems very much likely. We were kind of wondering if this was going to happen last season in the M8s with MSI Esports, if there was going to be the move up. Of course, there it was Salva Talent rather than Christian Lamela alongside Alejandro Sanchez, but either way, MSI Esports looking to pick up that spot. There's not many left to go. After this, we just have 4 more tickets to BMW Sim Live, so they're going pretty quick now.
Well, 4 tickets in the regular season. Then we'll go to that final race and what should be a very entertaining battle of just about 16 cars from the Hockenheimring, where 4 more tickets will be on the line. No prize money, though, in that season finale. Enzo Benito has closed onto the back of the German sim racing car in towards turn number 11 onto that back straightaway. A 1 kilometer drag race now in towards that turn 12 braking zone for Benito, who has been a superstar in 2021 here on the iRacing service. But out front, it is MSI, it is Alejandro Sanchez, it is Christian Lamela. They are now part of an elite crew qualified for BMW Sim Live as they come across the line here at the Circuit of the Americas to take a dominant win in round 2, in season 2 of the BMW Sim GT Cup. It will be Williams in second position, but now as we turn our attention back to this battle, red line through, Benito got the move done into turn 12.
Yeah, it must have been solid on the brakes and kind of what we were expecting. Benito up inside the top 10. It just switched over as we saw MSI Esports Blue cross the line to finish the race. Vendaval are way off this, and a little bit of a flash of the lights as well from GSR. Whether that was because they weren't happy or whether that was because, you know, just touche, not 100% sure. There's another flash of lights, maybe trying to distract. You can't distract Enzo Benito, not like this.
Oh, I've gone back to watch the replay. It was German sim racing out braking themselves into turn 12. So, yeah, I think it's just the touche that you mentioned. Across the line, Benito recovers to 10th. Podium, Williams Esports, the other red line blue car. Interesting race here, Lewis. Not the biggest field of cars. We saw a big disparity in, of course, your top-level drivers versus people here. Again, it's a public race, just having a little bit of fun and gaining some experience, but always good to go racing in BMW Virtual Motorsport.
Yeah, it is, and like I say, it's for some of these teams, the ones lower down, it could be their first time taking part in a broadcasted race or one of their first few, and you know, why not get involved and have a good go? We've seen some quality on the field and others joining in, and it's, like I say, it's great to see that just it being open for basically everyone to do so. It does create some interesting lap traffic problems, though. We've seen that affect the last couple of races now.
And lap traffic at Bathurst, that is going to be crazy. Fastest lap, I think it came on the very final lap. It was that Was Cooking Racing Adventures machine, but here in our race result, it is a almost 15-second advantage for Christian Lamela from Dominic Stabe. $1,200 into the pockets of Sanchez and Lamela. They will be ready to go racing for even more money come December and BMW Sim Live. Dominic Stabe and his teammate Sami Matti Trogan, $600 richer for both of them. They will now have to look towards either the next 2 races or our season finale at the Hockenheimring to get their own tickets to Sim Live. Chris Lullum does come across the line in third. It was a good charge to close the gap to the Williams Esports car in the closing stages. He stands on the final step of the podium with PRT Ronin Simsport dropping off the pace. They end up 4 seconds behind that podium position. Miata in the BS competition car, they were very disappointed after Imola to not have their victory and their tickets to Sim Live, but another top 5 finish. Very, very solid run for the Zebra. What a charge from Tuomas Tatila and his teammate Valtteri Alander. 20 positions gained on the day, our biggest mover by far. The R8G car qualified in 7th. They finished in 7th. Up and down day for them, but the juniors always gaining experience, always showing us just how promising they are. Arnage competition, Ronin Simsport, and Team Redline Red round out the top 10. What a charge from Benito and Beneke after contact on lap number 1. German Sim Racing across the line in 11th with Vendaval in 12th. Dream Factory G-Sim in 13th. Vendaval, Was Cooking Adventures, and German Sim Racing, the final cars on the leading lap. Dream Factory in 17th position, the second one of their cars with Z Challenger Chronicle Volante Racing and the second of the Z Challenger cars, this time the Hong Kong machine, rounding out the top 20 positions with CMS Racing, Iconic Motorsport, PLH Racing and Catalyst Racing are finishers here today. Some sort of an issue for Alpha Esports after a very fun battle with that Z Challenger Hong Kong car. They finish in 25th with Chris Russo getting disqualified on incident points. He finishes in 26th. Matthias Lamp in 27th with Team BCG Racing 28th. Team Anthony Rivera, CGP Esports, they complete the top 30 positions. Just a couple more cars across the line, and it was only actually one more car that took the green flag. James Keith Racing, very early retirement, 54 laps down. Sindre Setrals, by the way, has jumped into our YouTube chat to say, yes, I had the fastest lap. You got the fastest lap after we put that graphic up for some reason, so we apologize, Sindre. We did note your fastest lap. Here's some replays of the race. It started with that climb up the hill in towards turn number 1. Sanchez held strong. Beneke took a look on Sami Matti Trogan, but nothing doing. Side by side, just behind them, it was Setzels and Dinez.
Yeah, this is the Vendaval car trying to work through some progress against the PRT Ronin. I think that was just the regular PRT car. It was hard source, and there was the spin on going down through turn 2, and realistically speaking, must have just been cold tyres. Such a bizarre time to see a car spin. This was the issues for Team Redline Red, getting a bit of contact on the rear end from Sindre Setzels running through this section, trying to attack the Williams car. Door was open. Contact was made, and around goes 11k Beneke. It just doesn't sound right.
It doesn't. I think we need to get him to drop down to 10k once more, just for us here in the comms booth. It was still side by side between Patrick Holtzman and Dinez. These two had a pretty fun scrap in the first hour of the race, while the PRT Ronin car a bit more patient than I think we kind of expected. Here was some of the action for the Alpha Esports team. This time it was around the 9 car, the Z Challenger Kalioth machine. That was the Chronicle one. You can see now down into turn 19, deep under the brakes, the 9 car held on to the position. No alternate track limits being taken there, but some good fighting, not just at the front of the field, but down the back as well. This was a move from Kova. They didn't qualify, elected to try and charge their way up through the field and down the inside of the 337. Very easily done on the German Sim Racing purple car.
Yeah, Marvin Nasser-Molman behind the wheel of that one. He's been driving around in the GT4, of course, in the Sprint Challenge a little bit earlier. This battle we saw for basically over an hour between German Sim Racing and Vendaval, just a little bit further down the order on the cusp of the top 10. It was fantastic to see them battle out basically constantly all the way through. Dives down the inside, every single corner at 12, through the final corner, through the switchback section. Kova joined the party and made short work of it as they dived through, got past GSR, got past Vendaval, and then set their sights on positions even higher up.
This is, of course, after the pit stop cycle. So now at this point, the drivers had switched their way over. This is before the pit stop cycle, if I'm remembering correctly. Yes, this is Dinez, who had more issues with lap traffic. He gets inside of Patrick Holtzman. The PRT Ronin car says, thank you very much. Took full advantage of that one to slip down the inside of both of them. 2-for-1 action. And now on board with Dinez to take a look at the contact from his point of view. He was heartbroken from Imola to not take victory, and well, season went from bad to worse from him with that one through turn 11.
There's nothing he could do, and very easily picked up as we'll ride on board with the PRT Ronin SimSport car as it came through, picked it up absolutely beautifully, and then went on the challenge for the higher up positions and to try and grab the podium. You could just see lap traffic just sat there, contact was made, a little bit of a dab on the brakes, and then picks it up and then goes for the launch. The battle for the podium would rage on even after the pit stop sequence, and we were chatting about them a little bit earlier. Arnage getting through on that one being the Dream Factory car, and speaking of what they've been doing recently, rising up the order. Later pit stops though for Dream Factory than for most teams. They went the distance.
They did. They also, I think, had a slightly different strategy overall. Here came the continued charge from Kova. This was on Rodrigo Fluker, and I think Fluker didn't fight this one too much up the hill, using gravity assist to just slow you down. And Kova's next target was the Arnage competition, that pink BMW up the road. Continued fighting. This time it was Enzo Benito trying to chase down the 67 car, that German sim racing machine, as they worked their way down in towards the final corner. Corner on the back straight, I should say. This was on the final lap of the race. Just a slight mistake from the 67, outbraking himself, and allowed Benito to get on through into the top 10. What a fight back it was from Benito and Beneke. They took their fast repair on lap number 1, Lewis. They didn't look back after that.
Yeah, had a little bit of contact post. That's why there's some damage on the left-hand side, but they've had an enjoyable race back inside the top 10, and they raced hard for it. But it was all about MSI Esports and Lamela Sanchez. A fantastic race for them and absolutely dominant. I don't think there's any question about it. Massive winning margin.
Season 1 and the M8 GTE was all about Coanda and Redline. Now 2 for 2. We've had new faces punching their tickets into Sim Live. Looking forward to the next 2 races. We've got a couple of weeks off before we head to Bathurst, Lewis, and then it's a very long wait before we head to Monza, the final race in this regular season. If this trend continues, it won't just be the Redline and Coanda showcase, and that's ultimately what we want.
Oh yeah, we want to see more colours on the grid when we get to BMW Sim Live. We want to see more colours when we get to Hockenheim for the final of the season. Of course, like you were saying there, it's only a couple of weeks before we get to Bathurst, but then that enormous wait, 2 months until we go racing at Monza. But thankfully, with it being GT3 racing and such, these are cars and stuff that they race kind of all the time. They race fairly regularly, so they've got somewhat used to it. So I don't think that 2-month break will set anyone aside. Might give enough teams some of the time to go and chase that ticket to BMW Sim Live.
And I think ultimately it's Williams and BS Competition that really want to step up in these next 2 races and get their own run, because it's not even those tickets. They've had pace. It's just consistency over 2 hours that maybe been eluding them. In both of their cases, some incidents as well have precluded them from fighting at the front. They just need clean, solid races. They may end up at the front of these fields.
You never know how it's going to go, of course. I mean, coming into this, I would not... I mean, we were saying it last season. We think that MSI Esports, they had a win in them. We kind of got that vibe. They definitely had that kind of result in their hands. We saw that mostly at Suzuka, where they drove really, really well in the M8. But I would not have come into this race to expect MSI Esports to dominate on this level. And that's kind of the major thing, is that for the likes of Williams, for the likes of BS Competition, they've seen that now. Now maybe they're thinking, oh, I'd like a bit of a slice of that pie, thank you very much. I'll give that one a go next round.
Well, that's going to wrap things up here on RaceSpotTV and on BMW Esports social media. From the Circuit of the Americas, it was domination for Alejandro Sanchez and for Christian Lamela. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time. Don't miss any of the action here on RaceSpotTV. Subscribe to us on YouTube and hit that bell to get notified every single time we go live. So long and goodbye from the team at RaceSpotTV. For my co-commentator Lewis McLeod, for our producer Hugo Luis, my name is Arjuna Kankipati. We'll see you on the mountain for more GT3 racing.